And we're live.
Okay, I would like to call this Committee of a Whole budget meeting of December the 2nd, 2020 to order. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Russell, Councillor and Chair of Committee of the Whole budget meeting. We are meeting electronically through Zoom during this declared emergency period. Members of the public may observe the proceedings by accessing the live webcast on our YouTube channel. I will ask our town clerk to complete a roll call of council so that we may confirm quorum. Julie, please go ahead.
Thank you. Councillor Regima.
Here.
Thank you. Councillor Brunet.
Here.
Councillor McPherson.
Here.
Councillor McClick.
Here.
Councillor Timmers.
Here.
Councillor Reimer.
Here.
And Mayor Easton is going to join us later, and Councillor Pachariva is absent, and Chair Russell.
Here.
And we have quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. In addition, I want to take a moment to welcome the staff we have joining us today electronically. Our Chief Administrative Officer, Mike Kirkopoulos, our Finance Treasurer, Terry Trewalla, our Director of Planning and Development, Kathleen Dale, our Director of Community Services, Shannon McKay, our Fire Chief, Chief Greg Hudson, our Director of Economic Development and Communications, Paul Deaney, our Director of Public Works, Dave Graham, our Associate Director, Recreation and Culture, Sarah Ain, and our Manager of Corporate Communications, Liliana Busnello, our IT services and staff, and moderating and clerking the meeting today, we have our own town clerk, Julie Kirklos. Also joining us tonight, we have delegations from John Armstrong of Armstrong Strategy Group and Mike Gallagher of Heavy Construction Association of Regional Niagara. As this is a virtual meeting, I will ask that we follow some procedures during this electronic meeting. Should there be a connection or service disruption for the chair, or if quorum is lost, the chair and or clerk will call a 10-minute recess to reconnect and regain quorum. If quorum is lost, the meeting will be adjourned. If connection is lost from the chair, the clerk will ask those in attendance to wait to 10 minutes to provide the chair time to reconnect and resume the meeting. Otherwise, after that time frame, the mayor will resume the meeting until the chair has reconnected and resumes his role. Each member of council who wishes to speak, please use the raise hand feature on your video call, and the clerk will track our speakers list and then invite you to speak when I open up for comments or questions. Also, when I finish reading a motion and announcing the mover, the clerk will then call out the vote by reading each member's council's name. Please remember to take yourselves off mute during this portion of the meeting so you may confirm if you support or oppose. Also, when not speaking, please remember to keep yourselves on mute. Moving on to declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest tonight? Oh, Councillor Deputy Mayor Mikulik.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just through you, I'm going to declare an interest with regards to the budget item regarding Jordan Village improvement. It's kind of a last minute. I'm just thinking about it now. I'm sorry, Madam Clerk. I should have said something earlier in the day, but I'm just thinking now that we're voting on this subject. How would we proceed with the budget discussion?
So, Mr. Chair, if I may address that. So through you to the Councillor Mikulik, I would just refrain from, it's up to you. You can refrain from discussion at all,
Okay.
From the entire discussion on that item. And we're voting as a whole on the motions. However, I will make mention that you will refrain from discussion on that one item, and you'll have to submit a declaration of interest form to me later on.
Appreciate that. Now, what about when when it's time to vote on the capital budget itself? How will I?
So it's not just that one discussion, it's on the budget entirely. And we can just make mention that you are refraining from voting on that particular item itself that's encompassed within the budget.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, so if that one item comes up for discussion on its own, you'll just refrain from that discussion.
Okay, my apologies for not stating that earlier today.
No, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Appreciate the integrity. And just also a reminder that if we do have a vote on just that particular item, again, you would refrain from that vote as well as the discussion.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Seeing no other declarations of interest, members of the public, this is a statutory meeting, and the members of the public are advised that this evening's statutory public meeting is held pursuant to the provisions of Municipal Act 2001, and that the Town of Lincoln's notice of bylaw for the purpose of considering comments from the public with respect to proposed fees for 2021 and charges for water, wastewater rates, and budget. Once consideration is concluded, the items may be referred to a future council meeting for future considerations or final considerations and adoption. Should approval of the 2021 water and wastewater rates or budget be deferred by council, no further notice shall be required if a public statement is made at the meeting, declaring that the matter has been deferred. The municipality now intends to adopt or amend the budget at a later council meeting specified in the public statement. The public meeting shall now commence. Staff have established procedures for the public to participate during this declared emergency period, and information is available on our town website, and any future notices of public meetings will also provide direction on how the public can participate. There are no written submissions or delegation requests received regarding the proposed water and wastewater rates or budget to address council. So therefore, I declare the public meeting closed. Members of council, tonight we will be reviewing the proposed 2021 capital budget and fees. We will also be discussing the water and wastewater rates, offering an important and critical service to our residents at an affordable rate. We'll also be reviewing the usage and consumption rates for our residents that includes maintenance and expenses of the infrastructure, along with the user fee bylaw will be in front of us as well. This is an essential funding source generating revenue and cost recovery for the fee for service we provide to the community and the business sectors. This year looks different as all sectors have been affected by the pandemic. Staff are looking to keep our fees status quo when necessary. Lastly, tonight we will be taking a deeper dive into our 2021 capital budget. This is an opportunity for council to review projects being proposed and to ask questions where needed. Infrastructure investment in our community helps drive economic growth and enhances our community. We look forward to a spirited and good-mannered conversation ahead. We do have a delegation or some delegations, so we have one registered this evening, so please note that each delegation may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Individuals that registered have provided a link to join the meeting, and as well as the phone number should they encounter any technical difficulties. Should they lose connection, staff will try to make a connection with those individuals. So our delegation this evening is John Armstrong of the Armstrong Strategy Group and Mike Gallagher of Heavy Construction Association of Regional Niagara, providing a presentation regarding item 7.2, 2021 proposed capital budget. Gentlemen, please begin when you are ready, and remember you each have 5 minutes and our clerk will bring up the presentation that you provided. Welcome.
Thank you. Give me one moment here. Can everybody see the presentation?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, good evening, everyone. Mayor, councilors, CEO, and staff. My name's Mike Gallagher, president of HCARN, also estimator for Rankin Construction for 22 years. And also as an added bonus to this, I've a resident of the town of Lincoln for 25 years. What I bring to you today is just a little background of HCARN. We represent the civil and heavy construction sector in Niagara. We have probably about 6,000 employees combined through all the members. We deal with the infrastructure projects related to water, sewer, bridges, paving, roads, that kind of stuff. If you want to, please. Yeah, next slide. Great. We're always in tune with the community. We give back in our organization through some of our events that we host, and we give to Women's Place, Niagara Children's Center, the hospital, just a few. We also developed a scholarship program for Niagara College, and we also promote an engineering day for all the secondary schools and some elementary schools. So we try to get younger children involved with construction. Next slide. What's our issue? Our issue is that over the past, well, since March, there was a typical influx of tenders that came out, sort of the projects that were already designed and ready to go. And then in the last 2 months, there's been a huge stop of tenders. I can look over at our board here to tender, and there's one tender on the project board through the region of Niagara. Contractors are looking for work. We don't know, what's the delay. We've had conversations with some municipalities saying it's just an anomaly. There's a lot of engineering going along, but like I said, I've been doing this for 22 years. I've never seen it like this, never. So we're concerned. We're wondering what the spring's going to bring, and we think it's a wise choice for all municipalities to invest in infrastructure, to help instill the economy. So then I'll just pass it over to John Armstrong.
Next slide. Oh, there we go. Thanks, Mike. So yeah, I'm John Armstrong, and I get to say I'm for those who don't know me, I'm a Lincoln resident who's lived here for 26 years, Mike.
Yes, that's one more.
Yeah,
but you're up on top of the hill on Lincoln. So
I'm the last house on services. Come on, let's be clear. Okay.
Sorry to interrupt, John Armstrong. I forgot to introduce John. John is a paid consultant on behalf of HCARN. So he's our communications branch that we engage when we want to go out into the community and speak.
And so it's a pleasure to be here at Lincoln Council. It's always a great pleasure to be here at Lincoln Council. And as Mike was saying, HCARN came to us because they were very concerned about how the tenders in the second half of the year really dried up across the region, across the small R region. And so we're out expressing the HCARN's concern. They've managed to avoid layoffs, but needless to say, that it's made them anxious for the remainder of 2020, as well as rolling into 2021. So very simply, the asks that HCARN is hoping for is that any 2020 outstanding capital projects that council has already approved, that they be expedited and that they be put out to tender as soon as possible, and as well that during your 2021 budget deliberations, that you at least maintain, and if not increase, your capital spending. And certainly we did see that your capital spending on, I think it's characterized as transportation, which are the things that HCARN participate in, are up significantly, and that's really terrific. When HCARN first did a letter to the province and actually copied the local municipalities, actually it was Councillor Brunet who was the only councillor in Niagara who responded to HCARN and expressed some concern and invited us to meet with staff, and we met with a very receptive CAO, and as well as his staff, to talk about these issues. And as a matter of fact, there are going to be some additional discussions with HCARN in terms of bringing to bear some of their significant experience and as it relates to the capital program that Lincoln is doing. But we would ask that the 2020 projects, which there are some that are outstanding, get expedited and get going as quickly as possible, and that hopefully don't have an impact on the tenders that would be going out for 2021. Next slide. And we can also tell you another good reason why is, as Mike said, the things have dried up. And what does that mean? That actually means that the pricing is very, very competitive out there. Where previously, in previous years, you may get 3 companies responding to a tender, you're probably going to be getting 10 or 12, which means that those pencils are very, very sharp, and it's very competitive. So you will get very good value as well. And I think your staff has mentioned this too. The financing rates are currently extremely low, which makes it a good time for municipalities to engage in capital projects. And Lincoln also has an extraordinarily low debt ratio as well. I think you're at something like 2.6%. So there's lots of room to debenture capital projects and stay well within anything that might be any kind of a concern. And then finally, HCARN really believes that the time to spend on capital projects is now, for all of the reasons that we just talked about, and because we believe that infrastructure spending really can and should be a major contributing factor to the economic recovery for the region post-pandemic. I know a lot of municipalities are wanting to do something to help in the economic recovery and to help residents. Spending on the capital side with the debenture room is really a terrific way for you to contribute to that recovery. And then the last slide. And then finally, you don't have to just listen to us, but AMO in their supporting communities driving recovery in the wake of COVID-19 document stated that reducing capital spending may be attractive to managing budget deficits in the short term, but as experience in the 1990s have shown, these reductions come at a cost to long-term economic growth, as well as environmental and social priorities that are more expensive and then difficult to make up later. So the sector is concerned. The sector is concerned about what happened in 2020 and is concerned about 2021. Everything looks great with you guys, and we really appreciate it. We appreciate the opportunity of working with you and the opportunity to continue to work with you. But we just felt it was important that we bring this concern to council's attention. And with that, we'll answer any questions.
Hey, I just got one thing to add. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, John mentioned, we appreciate your budget and what have you. I was just reviewing it here in more detail as I was waiting, as we got online here at 5:30 and stuff. But it looks like your overall budget from 2020 to 2021 is a reduction of spending of about 18%. Looks like your transportation and environmental safety has been a sort of a flip-flop balance, but we just feel it's important to continue to spend I would say with diligence. I looked at a couple of your main project is that you're all in on your Jordan Village project. That's a significant project. That's a lot of dough to put at one project. I guess I'm at a double-edged sword here, where I'm from the sector and I'm also a taxpayer. So with that, I think that's our presentation.
Much better. Thank you, John. Thank you, Mike, for that presentation. I am now going to open it up to council for any questions. Anybody has any questions? Please use the raise hand feature. I see Councillor Renchema is first on tap. Councillor Renchema, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I do recall when Councillor Brunet resent your email that came out to us maybe a couple of months ago. and highlighted the situation and your concerns. And so we appreciate you coming here. It's important that we all become aware of some of the issues that are happening out there in the economy. So my question, I guess, is you're seeing a sharp drop, you're saying, in tenders for construction projects from municipalities. Have you gotten feedback from other municipalities as to why? And, you know, you don't have to name municipalities, but I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that. And I'm wondering if, I know early in the year when the pandemic first hit, you know, maybe do you think there were tenders out there for, you know, design work that got dropped? And that's resulting in projects getting dropped? Or, so I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I would say there's been a big, you know, adjustment lag for sure. You know, I know for one municipality that typically has 3 hot mix programs in their capital budget, went to one resurfacing program. So we noticed a decline in some of those municipalities. So we understand that the funds do shift based on the needs, but we feel strongly that some of the capital budgets just weren't used, and there's a big drop.
There's also been there seems to have been just a general slowing down in things getting out the door as everybody, as the municipalities are have been adjusting. And we've also we also understand that there have been some staffing shortages that have also resulted in things not getting out the door. And of course, doing those staff replacements are a challenge, have been a challenge through COVID. So it doesn't seem to be related to necessarily just related to sort of cutting back and sort of municipalities being concerned, but it's sort of general COVID. A lot of it does seem to be kind of just general COVID lag, and that's keeping projects from getting out the door. So, but making sure that there's to Mike's point, that there's diligence in pushing those forward. I mean, for example, we're concerned that in municipalities that may be facing operating budget problems, if they've got some holes in staffing in the procurement side, then that can result in well, the easiest way to reduce your budget is to not fill positions, but those kinds of things in this circumstance have a ripple effect out into the community, where those projects never actually get tendered, and they actually can have a significant impact on hundreds of jobs.
Interesting. So thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gemma. Just before I go to Councillor Bernay, I just want to interject a question very similar to Councillor Gemma's. How would you characterize the private development sector right now? Is it are they seeing the same trending as is happening on the municipal side, or is it different animal altogether?
I would say the private development, it would be somewhat similar, but you know, we've had from a personal experience, we've had a couple of big projects where, you know, with the Costco in Niagara Falls and stuff like that, where it's been a strong sector. Probably not as strong as we'd like to, but you know, we reach out to other markets and stuff like that. You know, there's Amazon in Hamilton and stuff like that. But on a whole, I would say that the subdivision residential market is still strong. So that's good from the construction side. So, you know, housing market's strong and what have you. So people always seem to be buying lots of houses. So that's a good indicator. So, you know, our stress point in here, I think, is that you know, borrowing is cheap. You're going to get excellent value for your money, and I would try to get as many projects out and spend it wisely. Even if you go to a different delivery model, you know, it's always about design and stuff like that. Even if the town was to consider a design build project where the contractor takes on the design, you know, we've been successful with 4 or 5 projects. One with the region of Niagara, where we did a design build on Dominion Road, and we delivered the project quicker and on budget. So
Okay, great to hear. Thanks, Mike. I believe our CEO, Mike Karkopoulos, just threw up his hand. I don't know if he wants to make a comment.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll definitely wait till after councillors have spoken. I just wanted to provide some comments for council following every other comment that's made.
Okay, we will keep you in the queue. Thanks, Mike. We'll go now to Councillor Brunet. Councillor Brunet, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Russell. Good to see you, Mike. Good to see you, John. Thanks for the presentation. You know, it's funny when you spend a bunch of years in the industry and you're involved in associations that are across the province. You know, you think about ORBA and you think about the OGCA, provincial associations, but I was really taken back when I read that you know, the little association of HCARN has 6,000 members. It blew me away, and I was almost ready to call bullshit on it when I looked and thought that, you know, it's true. You know, your sector touches so many people in terms of suppliers, contractors, you know, manufacturers, the manufacturers of plastic pipe and concrete pipe and all the different materials that go into the construction, and the engineers and the planners and the consultants. So it is a huge sector, and it's a bit of an eye opener to think how many people it does touch. So thanks for bringing this to our awareness. I think it is really important that we look at that infrastructure, not for just today, but for future generations. So a couple questions through you, Chair, to the delegation. You know, your presentation talks about a major shortfall, and in your industry, you know, there's always that busy fall season where a lot of the tenders get called that set the tone for the following calendar year. What percentage would you estimate, you know, has been deferred or canceled from what you would normally have seen in a non-COVID year?
I would say probably 25 to 40%. It's hard to quantify, but it's significant. Like last year, as a company, we had probably secured about $15 million for next year. So this year, you know, we probably secured like $2 million. So it's
significant.
Yeah.
I know you probably can't answer this question as well, you know, holistically, because so many of the members aren't your sewer and water main and your direct contractors or tradespeople. But, you know, of the people that you could probably speak to in terms of the contractor members on HCARN, you know, what percentage of those, you know, employees would you estimate have lost significant hours or actually been laid off during COVID?
But, you know, it's difficult specifically, but I would say, you know, we're probably experiencing right now probably a 3-week earlier sort of layoff than typical. Usually we'd be going right to the end, but yeah, I would say 3 weeks to a month right now, earlier layoff. And the big thing is we don't know what's going to curtail for next year. So. Mm-hmm. So that's the challenging part.
Yeah. So certainly, I just wanted to make a quick comment. I'm sure our CAO is gonna wrap it up in a bow at the end. But you know, you're right. When you look at our budget, and we're just kind of getting into our budget tonight with our budget binders. But yeah, combined between transportation and environmental and safety, and you know, the component in that safety is our fire services. So you're right, Mike, when you say, you know, combined between the 14.9 and the other number, we are down 20.5 from 24.48, but I'm not sure how much of that is in the fire safety. So certainly transportation is up and environmental and safety is down. So you're right. If you look at those numbers just on 2 line items, it appears down, but you know, this council, at least for the last 6 years, the last term of council and this council, you know, we've always been a council that wants to get our budget out early and get our tenders out early so that we can get, like John indicated, you know, that large number of contractors with sharp pencils. So I'm hopeful. I mean, it'll all come down to the numbers, but I'm hopeful that we'll continue that process. So thanks very much for being here this evening, and thanks for meeting with our public works staff to help us and guide us with new technologies as we go down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bernay. And I believe we have Councillor Mikulik up next, or Deputy Mayor Mikulik. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Armstrong and Mr. Gallagher, thanks for coming out tonight and making this presentation and explaining to us the current situation within your industry. Question I have is, how do we as a town, and this may be directed to our CAO as well. You mentioned, Mike, earlier that your company also does design and, design and detail work as well as the work itself. Have we as a town, or should we as a town be looking at retaining your services for that sort of, would that be included in the tender spec?
I guess I don't believe that town of Lincoln has ever done a design build. Maybe I don't know if the arena was design build. Was it, Tony? Or did it be? I think it may have been, but it's usually bigger projects. So, there's, design services that are usually consultants, and then, build projects, which are contractors. Sometimes the missing link is that, the design sometimes aren't, how you say it, well done, and there's loopholes. We've all seen those projects that fall through the cracks, and sometimes issues get oversimplified or just missed. So I guess what we find effective is these design build projects. As contractors, we look at the project as it's being designed, and then we steer the engineers and the consultants in the direction that we think is most economical and environmentally sensitive or correct, or just it brings everybody together in a more collaborative way. So we find it more efficient financially and quicker. Just that we hold the consultants to the fire. We push them.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm going a little bit. Is sometimes it's those that are doing the work that know best what needs to be done, as opposed to those that perhaps are first year out of university. And I look to your expertise, being in the industry for that many years, and I'm just not sure from our town perspective if we operate in that same sort of a way, which may be more maybe more in the private sector, but trying to perhaps bring a private sector to the municipal world somewhat. I don't know if this is possible, and I see our CAO has his hand up.
If I could, through you, Mr. Chair, to the Deputy Mayor, and I think both Mr. Gallagher and Councillor Brunet touched on it, but I think one of the things that came up in our meeting, and I will suggest that we did do a design build for the Fleming Center, and design build usually, I think, as Mike just highlighted, it is for those larger, more complex projects. But one of the things that I was going to mention in my comments at the end, but that I'll mention now, is we've agreed, I think, and we've had some back and forth in terms of scheduling some time in the next week or two, really to sit down with Mike, John, and their respective teams, and to start having a conversation on technology, to start having a conversation on everything from the surface treatments that we look at. Definitely design build came up when we first spoke with Mike and his team in terms of looking at infrastructure projects. And I think, as Mike highlighted, ones that are more complex, those kind of larger multi-million-dollar type projects. We talked a little bit about engineering consultants and roster lists. So I think there's a number of things that we're going to sit down and chat about over the next few weeks, and really, I think, have that iterative back and forth conversation that helps educate us all from the perspective of how do we get better, how do we make sure we're looking at the best possible option with the best possible product. So I've got some additional comments to make, Chair, but I'll do those kind of towards the end.
No, and thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I take, for example, the 13th Street rehabilitation. Like there was one, there was one professionally proposed. There's 3 or 4 different ways to do a project, and being fluid and flexible with your thinking, I think sometimes you can find some significant savings by consulting with those that are actually doing the work. So those are my comments, and I'm happy to hear what I'm hearing. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And we will now go to Mayor Easton. Your worship, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. John Armstrong, nice to see you again, John. Thank you very much for participating. And Mike Gallagher, you've certainly had a number of very interesting comments. We find ourselves in a very interesting situation. Criticism of municipalities in terms of their decisions around going forward with programs started pretty early on. And I would say that those positions which were telling us that we should be laying people off, that we should be diminishing service levels, and that we should be minimizing capital work is certainly not what you're telling us today. And I have to say, if I'm picking and choosing my messages and we're looking at the long-term viability of our community, I like your position better. It doesn't mean that we don't need to be very careful in terms of our financial sustainability, but if we start to do any of those things, we're going to run into some pretty difficult problems around population health and some of the programs that support families that really need green space to have fun in and to keep healthy, but also our local supportive businesses. So I'm very pleased, and I think Deputy Mayor Mikulic's point is a good one, because we had a very good experience with the Camden Fire Hall, where the staff were working with the contractor throughout the process to find maybe not better ways, but certainly different products and different strategies. And maybe this will be the new way going forward, that we will find those people that are very comfortable with this type of a partnership. I'm interested to hear what the CAO has to say about this. And so for all of those reasons, your presentation I felt it's very positive, it was progressive, and it helped bolster, I think, where this council has been going for quite a long time. So thank you very much for what you've had to offer us tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hey, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I believe our CIO would like to, as Councillor Bernay mentioned, put a bow on it. Please go ahead.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I think to everyone, and I'm happy to see both John and Mike here. Mike and I talked about going for a bike ride together because he wanted to show me one particular road, but I said, I'm not sure if either of us are in shape to do that, but I was more speaking about myself. But, I think my comments or where maybe I'll make my comments are that, I agree wholeheartedly, and I think council's heard us from a staff perspective say on a number of occasions the importance of stimulating the economy and the role that municipalities play. And I think, HCARN definitely, I think, it is a symbiotic partner in that message. They did send a letter, council knows, and HCARN highlighted that we responded favorably to that letter, and that Councillor Bernay was one of the only members of council across the region that responded to them. And I think that was the impetus for that conversation. Following our conversation a number of weeks ago, we did invite them here tonight, and I thought it was timely to have them come to this meeting. They've spoken with a couple of the larger municipalities in Niagara, and I think we're maybe 4th or 5th on their list. So I think that's always positive, and we're incredibly responsive to our business community. The workers, the 6,000 members that belong to Mike's organization at HCARN are taxpayers in all of our communities. They're individuals that help our economies. I'll just end by saying I think that, from a public infrastructure perspective, I do believe it is important. It is about economic growth and facilitating kind of that interaction between the various parts of our local economies. It comes as no surprise that we're going to see probably an unprecedented stimulus package and stimulus projects coming from the federal and provincial governments, probably that we haven't seen before. It'll far exceed 2008 and probably what we've seen with any other economic downturn. And so I think from that perspective, I know Mike and I chatted today a little bit about designs and being tender ready, making sure that we can get out as quickly as possible. But I think, from that perspective, we need continued investment in that modern infrastructure, not only here in Lincoln, but across Niagara, and I'd say across this province. So look forward to working and learning both from Mike and his team and them sitting down with us and having a longer term relationship.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Seeing no other members in the queue, I just wanted to take one last thank you to Mike and to John for joining us tonight. Please do send warm regards to all 6,000 of your members. We look forward to hearing from you again and look forward to a robust 2021. So thank you for coming out tonight, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, there being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councillor Brunet to receive and file as information correspondence and presentation provided by John Armstrong of Armstrong Strategy Group and Mike Gallagher of Heavy Construction Association of Regional Niagara. I will now ask our clerk to call out the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Brunet.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Miklick,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Chair Russell,
Yes.
Madam Mayor,
Support.
and Councillor Pachariv is marked absent. That carried.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Moving on to the consent agenda, we have no consent agenda items. So we will now move on to our regular agenda. Our CIO, Mike Kirkopoulos, and staff will be providing a presentation which will address item 7.1, report FN 12-20, and item 7.2, 2021 proposed capital budget. Mr. CIO, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through to all members of council. I think Mr. Deaney's just pulling up the presentation now, and he will help drive for me this evening.
You see it, Mr. CIO?
I can.
Okay.
Next slide. A little bit of an overview in terms of this evening's agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about where we are, share with council a little bit on our budget engagement and some of the results that have come in. A little bit of a highlight of some of the financial pressures due to COVID-19. Then we will jump into fees and charges, which will include water and wastewater rates. And then we will move into the 2021 capital proposed budget. So goals of this evening, as I said earlier, I think we'll be taking a deeper dive into our 2021 proposed capital budgets. I know I've spoken to a number of members of council, if not all, over the last couple of days as we find ourselves to this particular point. Again, I think we're hearing a lot about COVID. Comes as no surprise that this is both top of mind in terms of the work we're undertaking, but also the economic impacts of COVID, the economic outputs that go with that, and what that means just from a workflow perspective. So we are in a global pandemic. It has hit government right across the globe. And as we heard again from our previous speakers at HCARN, we both have a role to play, but also need to manage what 2020 looked like and looks like for the remaining month, and what 2021 will look like as we balance the need to look at immunization clinics and all the other things that are before us. So what's before you this evening is a recommendation from staff based on a sound plan for fiscal prudence, which we heard from council loud and clear, and on the much needed infrastructure for our community. One of the comments I didn't make when HCARN was presenting, but 2020 and 21 definitely exceed, I think, as some members of council highlighted and staff did, what we've been doing in the last number of years. And part of that is timing, part of that is just the level of development, growth, and construction going on in our communities. At the end of the day, we will need council's direction or hope to seek council's direction this evening on 2 items. One, any additional projects or removal of projects for that matter that council may want to see on the capital program. And number 2, some direction as it relates to the special infrastructure levy. As you see there, I've highlighted 2 options that we did share and discuss with members of council at our last meeting. One is a 0% levy increase for capital, and the other one is a 1% levy increase for capital. So a little bit of background on our budget engagement preliminary results. To date, as of this morning, we had 342 respondents, by far the largest we've had since doing budget engagement. Our respondents are evenly split between male and female. The age breakdown is highlighted there. Over the last few days, we've seen an increase in that 45 to 64 year cohort. But overall, we're seeing most of our respondents come from that 31 to 64 year cohort, followed by the 64 plus, and then some from that 18 to 30. Location of respondents, our most dense area is in the Beamsville area. And so logically, we have seen most of our respondents from Beamsville. And then how long you've lived in the community, a fairly even representation when you look at 1 to 5, 6 to 10, and 20 years plus. So overall, fairly equally split. In terms of the questions we asked this year, I think we spent a considerable amount of time making sure that the questions we asked were in no way, I think, leading one way or another, but definitely wanted to gauge from members of the public and members of our community the overall satisfaction with the delivery of services. So as you can see there, almost 60% of respondents were either very satisfied or satisfied. 24% fall into that neutral category, and 17% fall into dissatisfied. Our next question focused on value for tax dollars. And again, as you can see there, we had almost 50% strongly agree or agree, 29% in the neutral category, and about a quarter in the disagree. So in terms of top 3 areas where members of the public who completed the survey wanted to see investment, about a quarter or 24% in roads, almost the exact same amount in winter operations and community beautification, and a little under 20% in the parks, trails, and recreational programming area. Next question was around how would you like to address funding for the additional infrastructure needs that are required, and the top 3 were continue the special infrastructure levy at 39%. Timely, I think, based on our discussion the other day, dispose of town-owned property or unused facilities was 34%, and about 17% said an increase to the tax levy or the use of financial reserves. So we also wanted to get, I think, some input in terms of how COVID-19 had affected the household budget for those that were responding. Over half, 54% said no effect, 37% said negatively, and 9% said positively. We also asked about job stability in COVID-19, and again, the data below highlighted that a little under 50% were not affected or didn't expect to be. 15 had seen a decrease in hours or pay, 10% no effect, 6% laid off, and 4% actually saw their hours extended. So financial pressures due to COVID-19, I think as we've been presenting to members of council, you've seen from us highlighting what are those financial pressures, but I thought it important to highlight again. Maintaining service levels. All municipalities are facing financial pressures in doing that, trying to meet the expectations that our community has, and in some areas, the community is accessing services much more than they were in the past. And then when we look at specific areas, if we think about municipal law enforcement and the efforts that our MLE group is doing specifically around COVID and the COVID protocols, and of course, our community services facility maintenance group, keeping our facilities safe, keeping them clean, keeping our vehicles safe, and so forth. Revenue forecasts are down. Again, no surprise. When we look specifically at recreation and cultural programming, we're seeing some drops in those areas. And that's really a result of the fact that we have limits on the number of people we can let into our programs, let into our facilities. And so we are seeing a decrease in that area. And that's something that I would characterize as happening not only across Niagara when I talk to our regional CAOs, but broadly across the province and across the country. Provincial support has been received, and we've applied for more, as members of council know. And we've applied for that second phase of funding to cover unexpected expenses associated with the pandemic, and we are awaiting a result of that ask. Some ways we've overcome those challenges and will continue to overcome those challenges. And I think you heard again from our previous speakers, we do have healthy reserves. We do have low debt ratios. And so we will leverage those reserves if and where possible. And we will continue to advocate to the provincial and federal governments and the respective agencies like FCM and EMO for additional support. As I wrapped up the comments with HCARN, everything we're reading, everything we're seeing, there will be stimulus funding in 2021. There will be a need for us to have shovel-ready projects and projects on the shelf if and where we can to make sure we tap into those stimulus programs. So budget drivers, a little bit of a repeat on this slide in terms of what drives our budgets, council priorities, service level growth, asset management needs, internal capacity, the mandated and legislated nature of what we do, and the operational needs. Our guiding principles, again, this is a repeat slide, but I thought it important to highlight one more: minimal impact to the tax levy, looking at our reserves where possible, continued investment in all assets, hard and soft infrastructure. There continues to be infrastructure gaps across our municipalities, across the country, across the province, and we need to continue to invest in all assets, again, both hard and soft infrastructure. Continued resident-focused capital, informed financial sustainability, and investment in the various service components and being future-focused. So fees and charges. You do have a fees and charges report in front of you this evening, highlighting staff's recommendations regarding the fees and charges. You also have a report in front of you. Appendix A to that showcased the increases and decreases. However, I do want to bring to council's attention, and I did take a few inquiries from members of council and fielded them. There was a small copy and paste error that made it look like some of our recreational fees had increased by $27 and $25 respectively, just to highlight a few. That is not the case. Again, there was just a copy and paste error. It's actually a $1 or $2 increase in a few particular areas. And so this does not affect the approval of this evening's fees and charges bylaw. And we will be sure to send council those updated numbers. But again, I don't want council to think there's a $25 or $27 increase. Staff's recommendations as it relates to the fees and charges, and we had significant conversations on these, was very much focused on ability to pay and only increasing in certain particular areas. So affordability remained top of mind, competitiveness remained top of mind as we looked at our fees and charges, especially given our communities and generally people's abilities to pay and the financial pressures people faced during the pandemic. So when we talk about fees and charges, just a little bit of a recap and some background there. This is outlined in various sections within the Municipal Act. So there is a mandated and legislative responsibility we have to approve fees and charges, specifically as they relate to a couple of the categories that are highlighted there. And they are in a number of our legislative documents in terms of guiding what we do and how we do it. Some are based, as it says there, on the capacity of the marketplace and what we can do. and some are driven by the values of the community, the values that council sets, the values that we've set together when we think about some of our social programs or children's programming. So there's some areas where we haven't made any changes. Cemetery, corporate and legislative services, our financial services, library, and public works. And then there are areas where we have made changes. Definitely, I think, consistent with our colleagues across the region, increases around building, planning, and development fees, and municipal law enforcement. And some of that, again, is legislated, mandated, and just where we're seeing the trends go towards. Fire, rescue, and emergency services. And as I highlighted before, community services. In some areas, and in the areas where you'll see increases, we are trying to progress towards matching our comparators. So how we rank versus our other municipalities, whether it be in ICE rates, whether it be in other programming. And also we've got some new programs we've offered. So some areas where you may not see increases or you may see large increases, it's because we didn't have some of those programmings. And of course, as I'll be sharing with you shortly, our utility rates, so our water and wastewater charges. So a little bit of an overview of our wastewater and water. Almost 7,000 customers within our system, split between residential and what we call ICI, so the industrial, commercial, institutional, 95-5 respectively. We have over 100 kilometers of water main, 81 kilometers of sanitary sewers, and 711 fire hydrants. A lot of the stuff that council is required to do around the Safe Drinking Water Act and legislated cost recovery make up how we do calculate our water and wastewater rates. And at the end of the day, our investments really focus on those quality of life tenants that are highlighted there. So our recommended changes for water and wastewater are before you there. There is no change year to year on our variable usage. And we are seeing a small increase on our base usage from 2020 to 2021 on both the water and wastewater. The overall increase is $23.32 per year. So on a quarterly basis, as this is issued, that does work out to a little over $5 and I think $5.85, give or take, in terms of a quarterly increase. So about $23 per year. Thought this slide was important, again, just to highlight for council where we are on water and wastewater moving forward. Want to highlight for council the information and the proposals on the water and wastewater rates that you have in the previous slides do come from the work that was done in 2016. Council previously had approved a 2016 rate study that set rates moving forward, and that is what we have in front of you in terms of the proposal on the previous slide. We did hear council's questions when you had the consultant here about a month ago talking about a new rate study. And that new rate study will be initiated in 2021 for an implementation in 2022 and the following 4 years. I want to just again highlight that for council, because the decision we're asking you to make, notwithstanding the discussion we had about the future state, was a decision that began in 2016 with the previous rate study. Staff are coming back early in 2021 for a strategy on the new rate study. And as discussed, options for council to decide on will include at that time a number of things. We talked about the use of debentures, for example. We talked about, do we look at increasing the variable and fixed rates? We talked about the ability to work with the development community on prepayment strategies of development charges to allow that confidence both for council and the community when we decide to spend these types of monies. And at the end of the day, it'll likely be a combination of all of that. So we will be in front of council in 2021, seeking your direction, seeking council's input as we make those decisions. Again, this has no impact on the rate budget that's before you on the previous slide. that, as I noted, was decided and approved as a strategy in 2016. So a little bit of a follow-up as we get into the capital budget and the various buckets. The transportation bucket first. There was a request for staff to come back with some information. Before you, you do have the First Avenue project, which was one of those projects that we were asked to come back with. As we shared with council previously, the design work is currently underway this year. As per the 10-year capital forecast, the construction was initially scheduled for 2022. It is a $1.3 million project that is funded between our Water and Wastewater Reserve Fund and long-term borrowing. I've highlighted their options for council's consideration in terms of this project, and if council would like to move this project forward to 2021, which was the direction we were given to come back with what that would look like. And so council has two options. Of course, you can always swap out one project for another. That's something council has within their purview. You can also add it to the existing capital envelope. I would suggest there is no budget levy impact. And I only say that in terms of the fact that there's no levy impact. There's still money being spent, and we're well aware of that. But this project is funded from our reserves and long-term borrowing. And I think the only caveat that I have there is we always continue to look at every project we either add, remove, or increase from a capacity perspective. And so we're always looking at our ability to complete these projects. So no concern if we're swapping. At the end of the day, I think we'll be able to get this project done should council move forward with accelerating it. But alternatively, there's also other options for council consideration. Next slide. So Jordan Village improvements. I've included this here because following our workshop in between the last two presentations, we've given council today's presentation and the previous one on the capital program. There were a number of questions that came out of that workshop. Questions were raised about two key items. One, the use of Silva cells, and two, around what we call the pavers or interlock on Main Street, and is it a good idea to have full utilization of pavers versus another material? Following that workshop, staff, I know myself, Director Graham and Walter spoke. I did engage VRIC. We also reviewed municipal best practices relative to green technology, maintenance, the application of these types of issues, positive results. I would gauge, that are coming from those conversations, and there is a review underway. So there's two options for council to consider. You'll see I've highlighted one because that is my recommendation to council. Option one is to approve the total amount within the 2021 envelope, and then staff report back at a future date with reductions. The second option, and I've spent some more time discussing it here for council, is to defer this project from the capital budget at this time and bring back an in-year report early in Q1 to approve funding. There is, again, no levy component. So from having to go back and address budget, that isn't an issue. It in no way puts this project at risk. We have started considerable works on this project. We've done the hydro relocation. We've engaged consultants. And so I think it's important to highlight this is not about removing this project, stopping this project. It is about simply deferring this portion of the project so that we can come back to you at a particular point in time. We are committed, as is Niagara Region, on this project. And so our thought, my advice to council and for your consideration would be to defer this project so we can come back with some conversations and some decreases in the budget that we anticipate as a result of looking at both Silva cells only in some key spots where there's a lot of hardscape, and then using some other soil technologies that Dr. McGrath at VRIC has highlighted and suggested for us. And then again, looking at a plan that uses other materials, asphalt, in partnership with maybe some other concrete pavers in certain areas where we're going to have lay-bys and that are going to be very pedestrian focused. thought again on this project was important just to highlight for council, there will be strong oversight on this project. We will be working with consultants. We will be engaging project management resources. And I think one of the things we'd like to do is make sure that whatever project management resources we have, architectural, engineering, and so forth, there's some joint reporting there so that we maintain control. Communications, engagement, construction, and that stakeholder and partnership liaison work, I think is going to be essential on this project. So, Mr. Chair, here's a list of the capital projects for transportation that we've seen highlighted here. Again, as referenced on the previous slide, the Jordan Village Improvement Project we would like to see at this particular time removed from this slide because we will be coming back early in Q1. I leave it to you how you want to go through each of these. I know we had talked about just the structure of the conversation so that we could start going through these and getting, at least in principle, where council is at. One of the things you heard from Mr. Gallagher earlier, and that we as staff have told you on a number of occasions, it's important to get an idea from council where you're at on these projects and agreement in principle so that we can start tender documents and all the other works that are required so we can be out as early as possible and secure the best prices. So before moving on, Chair, I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. No, okay, what we'll do, I was just thinking about something if we can just keep on going through, but what we will do, we are going to now go through the capital projects for that first bucket. The way we're going to work this through, we're going to just review each one. Everybody has a table of contents. I believe it's page 7 in your binders. We will just go through one by one. If anybody has any questions or concerns, you will have the ability to raise them then. Just to follow proper procedure, if you would like to amend, add, or remove any projects, we will require a motion and a subsequent vote. So with that being said, we are going to start with project 1 in your capital binders that our staff has so lovingly put together for us, the culvert rehabilitation program. And I see Councillor McPherson has raised his hand. Councillor McPherson, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually was hoping we could ask questions on the presentation. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
With you? Okay.
Absolutely.
So I do have a question about the slide that shows the First Street redevelopment. If you want to go back to that. So thank you. So I think we have agreement with staff that this road is more than ready for redevelopment. The shape that it's in. It was scheduled to be on the 2021 capital budget, but we know that it got bumped to 2022. My questions here are through you to the CAO. So if we are looking at this as a non-levy item, and we're looking at it as reserves, and we're looking at it as some long-term debt, would it matter if it was done in 2021 or 2022?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, I think the easiest way to answer the councillor's question is no, because we're not dealing with it from the perspective of levy dollars. I think, as I highlighted there, of course, we look at just our ability to be able to do the work, but I think as we look at getting better at how we do project management, that potentially I think becomes less of an issue for us. So I think to answer your question, Councillor, no. If I think about the comments and what we're seeing, at least from borrowing costs, they are extremely low. I'm not one, I think, to look further into 2022 and try to predetermine if they'll go up, but borrowing costs are definitely as low as we've seen them in a very long time.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair. The next question on that item is, you mentioned capacity, and with the design being done this year, would that take care of our commitment to capacity if we're ready to go to tender in 2021 or early in 2021?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, I'll let Director Graham chime in, but you know, I think having the design done, that's a positive thing, Councillor. You know, I think, you know, my comment and why I included it there is just, I think that caveat that we are in a pandemic. I don't know how busy, you know, 2022 or 2021 potentially looks like from an ability to do work. But I think, you know, capacity is something that you know, I try to highlight, but I try to manage internally with staff. And so it's highlighted there as a consideration, but by no means something that would either act as a deterrent or subsequently something that is of a huge concern. But Director Graham may have some comments.
Thanks, Mr. CAO, to the councillor. Yeah, you know, what we were looking at, councillor, was more around, you know, we have a very large capital program as we go into 2021, and you know, just the internal capacity to administer all these projects. So it is an important factor that we do look at when we prepare the budget and the amount of projects involved.
That answer your question, Councillor McPherson?
Yeah, and I guess I would throw out there as well, you know, the delegation we had tonight and the request from the delegation to seriously consider, you know, any other projects that we can add to the current roster of projects. So, you know, I think that from a financial standpoint, there doesn't seem to be a significant hit for 2021 versus 2022. We are into the design and you know, I'm expecting that we should be finished with that. The only challenge that I'm hearing is juggling it with other projects that we've got going. So my recommendation is that we do consider adding this to the 2021 budget. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. And just to make a quick note before we go any further, I was a little further ahead in my notes. We will be taking a break for questions on the presentation. We will be reviewing all of the capital projects at the end. So that was my error. I apologize. But we do have Councillor Mikulik, or Deputy Mayor Mikulik, next in the queue. Please go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Through you to our CAO, when or maybe to yourself, when are we going to be discussing the special infrastructure levy and our thoughts? At what point in this meeting are we going to be doing that?
We will be discussing it at the very end, before we, at the end of our capital project review. It will be item number 36.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Councillor Reimer.
Thank you, Chair Russell. And sorry, just to confirm, we're okay to ask questions still about the First Avenue project? I didn't catch all of that.
We can. I would imagine that it sounds like Councillor McPherson is going to be making a motion to add that to our capital projects, just intimating from what he said. So you can either ask questions then, or you can ask them now, but probably more pertinent if you ask them at that time.
Okay, I can ask at that time. That's fine.
Okay. Any further questions on the first portion of the presentation? Seeing none, Mr. CAO, would you like to proceed?
Sure, through you, Mr. Chair. So as it relates specifically to this slide, how did you want to address this slide? I assume there's no questions as it relates to the projects that are on the transportation slide, separate and aside from the fact that we've removed Jordan Village at this particular point in time.
It doesn't look like any, but we are going to be going through them one by one afterwards.
Okay. So moving forward, environment and safety. Again, nothing that I would bring to council's attention at this particular point in time. Right now, we haven't made any changes since the last time, so I leave it to you, Chair, to go through these when we get to the end of the presentation. Mm-hmm. Next slide. So social infrastructure is our next subgroup. And so I do have, again, some changes here. Jordan Lyons Park, there's a number of questions that were raised since the documents went out regarding the scope of the project as outlined. I'll recall for council that as part of the Parks, Recreation and Culture Master Plan, that we did have some engagement where we went to the community and talked about needs, but that was across the entire town of Lincoln. And also when we came to council with a report that highlighted our desire and our request to submit ISIP applications, kind of that first initial round of infrastructure stimulus as COVID was beginning. But separate and aside from that, I have heard council's concerns, and my recommendation to council at this particular point in time is to pull the project that is outlined in terms of the studies of $750,000 in the current 2021 capital budget. My objective to council and staff's objective would be that we report back in 2021 on an overall strategy and the overall development of the site. That'll include a thorough business case detailing the scope of the project, including project costs, and a comprehensive community engagement strategy to solicit community feedback on community needs. I won't get into the details of all of that, but I will say I think I would hazard to guess that this project will be probably one of the largest recreational infrastructure projects that Lincoln potentially entertains. And so I think taking a little bit of time, taking a little bit of a pause to solicit extensive and more detailed community feedback on community needs is a good idea. And so we'll also be bringing back a little bit more of a detailed financial plan outlining costs and possible funding sources. Is there a potential risk that if we have a very quick announcement on infrastructure stimulus and the requirement for shovel-ready projects, that this falls through the cracks or parts of it fall through the cracks? Possibly, but I think we will cross that bridge when we get to it. As well, before moving forward with the detailed design of the park, I think it's, again, prudent that we go through some of this, and a part of that conversation will be on the Jordan Arena. It is a significant conversation. It is an asset, a piece of infrastructure that we have that is on borrowed time, so to speak, but something, again, that I think when I look at Jordan Lyons Park and this project in front of you requires more time. So we will be removing it from the 2021 capital budget. So again, there are some slides here. There's some projects here that detail a couple of the other projects within the social infrastructure category. We'll go through them at the end, as again, I fielded a few questions on a few of these and staff are ready to speak to them. But you will notice that, and you will see that moving forward, we'll be removing the Jordan Lyons Park site master plan detailed design. Corporate infrastructure. Again, fairly straightforward here. Nothing's changed since the last time we were in front of you. And as Chair Russell has highlighted, we'll be going through each of these projects should council have any questions at a later time. So this slide is just a look at the proposed 2021 budget that includes the various subcategories in terms of funding sources and project spending, and includes both a scenario that has us at a 0% special infrastructure levy or a 1% increase to the special infrastructure levy. The capital budget, as it stands right now, sits at 0%. You'll see an asterisk at the side there that just highlights that following the discussions and decisions and council's agreement to either add another project and to agree with what I hope is the recommendations that I put forward in terms of removing a few projects at this particular point in time are not included right now, but we will be sending council an updated document and sharing with you the updated numbers when we do that. But again, I think important to highlight here for you what we've got in front of you. The numbers that Mr. Gallagher highlighted that show a decrease in our capital program, you can see at the bottom there from 2020 to 2021 are listed there. Next slide. So the special infrastructure levy, Again, a little bit of a highlight about what is the special infrastructure levy, what it covers, giving council some background. You know a lot of this information, but thought it important to share with you. Council can choose to include it at your discretion. It is a 1% special infrastructure levy here in Lincoln on our portion of the property taxes, which equate to 36.5% of the overall taxes. And so that's why you see that last line there that's highlighted, that a 1% special infrastructure levy in Lincoln only equates to 0.365% on the overall tax bill. So next steps, pending tonight's discussion, staff hope to finalize to a much better degree in principle the 2021 capital budget. We'll address any questions, as we have often in the past, in terms of reporting back to council if needed. And we look forward on December 9th. If, again, depending on what happens this evening and council's desire, adding a small addition to the December 9th council meeting that looks at a potential introduction to operating, and then the calendar for 2021 that looks at us doing our operating budget deliberations in January, beginning them, and hopeful budget approval by the end of January.
Okay, thank you, Mr. CAO. Does any council member have any questions or concerns about the presentation this evening? Okay, seeing none, we are going to do a little bit of housekeeping. We will be reviewing, we will be, there being no further discussion on item 7.1, we are going to ask that the clerk receive the motion to receive and files information. Excuse me, let me go back. Is there any discussion on item 7.1, the report regarding the user fees, water and wastewater information? And I see Councillor McPherson. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so are we asking questions about Appendix A? Is that where we're at?
Yes.
Okay. So always interested to know when we look at fees such as ice rental and how we compare to our neighbors. And I did reach out to Sarah this afternoon to ask that question. And I think that I'd like Sarah to share that information with us as to how we stack up from an ice rental standpoint, because it seems to be a topic of discussion on the street that when we look at arenas and where we're at. So Sarah, if you would please share with us how we compare.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor. We do a regional comparison every year as part of our exercise to develop rates and fees for council, and we did that again in 2020. Is there a specific fee, councillor, or would you like to generally know across the board?
I think if Grimsby, West Lincoln, Pelham, that type of comparison, just our kind of our immediate neighbors.
Sure. Just let me pull up a couple of spreadsheets that I have to reference, if that's okay. So we do compare to all of the area municipalities. Of course, our West Niagara partners are probably the ones that we look at most closely, as well as St. Catharines, just in terms of proximity. So I should start by saying that not everybody does ice time rentals the same. There is not a standardized rate, if you will, that all municipalities are offering. So when you use the term prime time and non-prime time, it can mean different things in different municipalities. So we have a number of rates here in Lincoln. We have a prime time rate and a non-prime time rate. We have a minor sport rate, and that's extended to our minor hockey group as well as our skating club. And then we have a school rate. So not all of the municipalities have those rates. We are always trying to have rates that are as affordable for all of our groups as possible. So when we talk about prime time rates, those would be extended to adult groups here in Lincoln but prime time in other communities may be a different definition. So it isn't an apples to apples comparison. Right now we have, in terms of prime time, we are ranked 5th in Niagara out of 12 municipalities for being the most affordable prime time rate. So that's a number we're really happy with. We're about, middle of the pack there. In terms of Grimsby's rate, Grimsby actually is the highest rate for primetime ice in Niagara, and West Lincoln comes in 8 out of 12 municipalities. Does that answer your question, or were there other rates that you wanted to examine there?
No, I think that that gives us an idea of how we can respond if asked on the street, about our rates. I think being where we are, middle of the pack, and not being certainly more expensive than our immediate neighbor, helps in that discussion. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I also have a question with regards to open air fire permit, and through you to the chief. And I thought this was an interesting change when I asked the chief about this reduction in the fire permit, even though it's a $12 change. I thought the answer was a good news story. So if I could ask the chief to share that with us.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the councillor's question. We have actually reduced the fee for online permits from $40 down to $28. And that is a reflection of the fact that because the online permits have much less staff processing time involved and some of the costs associated with that, it doesn't cost the town as much to process those particular permits. So we're passing the savings along through a reduced fee. The paper permits will still be available in 2021, and because we still have the same amount of processing, those will still remain at $40, but we're hoping as we transition down the road that we'll be able to go to an entirely online process.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McPherson. And I believe we have Councillor Renjema up next. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is about on page, I guess it's the first page of Appendix A, and it's about some of the recreation community services fees have been decreased. So we heard early on in the presentation from the CAO that some of our income from programming has been decreased by as much as 40%. And I guess that's due to the inability for people to have participated due to COVID restrictions. So I'm wondering what the relationship, if any, is between that and some of the decreases that we're seeing, for example, in water safety lessons. The Bronze Star has gone down, Bronze Medallion has gone down, Bronze Cross for youth. So that's my question.
Is that directed to Director McKay?
Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Chair, I'm going to actually direct this to Associate Director Sarah Ain, who works with the recreational staff to review the fees and complete the cost calculator as we work through this exercise.
Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Renjema. Councillor, those are actually increases that are reflected in Appendix A that you're referencing about water safety lessons, not decreases. I can speak to why those increases exist if that's of interest.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. They are. Okay. Yes, please. So that makes a little more sense, but go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, so I can share a couple of the things that are driving those increases. And just to be clear, we examine all fees and charges across the board. None of our drop-in style programs, if you will, at the pools specifically. So that being leisure swimming, lane swimming, adult water fitness, those were not increased. The only reason that you'll see an increase on any fee with respect to the pool or recreation programs or camps is a result of fees that are being passed on to us. So for example, those leadership courses that you just mentioned, Bronze Cross, Medallion, Star, there's course materials, those go up every year. We have to pay exam fees for the candidates to be in them, whether they pass or fail. So those are passed on to us, which are directly built into the fees. So those are annual increases. And then again, some other areas where you see some increases in private swimming lessons, for example, looking at market comparables of our neighbors to see what they're charging as well. So we are still the lowest in terms of what we're charging across the region for private swimming lessons to ensure that we're affording that or maintaining that affordability, but ensuring that we're being competitive as well.
Okay, thank you. And a clarification question, Mr. Chair?
Certainly.
The asterisks are for?
That would be HST included in the price. So anyone over the age of 14 is required to pay HST on the program. So you will see sometimes that there's 2 program fees, one for those under age 14 and one for over age 14.
Okay. Okay, so I'm glad to hear that we're still competitive in terms of rates to others in the region, because you know, we know that social programming is increasingly important and is going to be continue to be important in the coming years. Always has been, but particularly in light of COVID, we want to make sure that our residents are able to enjoy these programs at an affordable rate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gemma. And we now have Deputy Mayor Mikulik. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to probably, I'm going to say, our CAO. So we have these fees and you know, these charges that we charge. We've taken in the past 8-9 months an educational or a you know, we've been good about being fair with actually charging these fees. And a particular example is with regard to those bag signs and these signs that are illegally placed all over town. Are we charging the $10 per sign? Are we actually enforcing these charges and fees, or are we still taking, or have we taken a lenient approach? Or is that going to change in 2021? What are your, do we know? I'm not aware.
So through you, Mr. Chair, to the Deputy Mayor, I think, Councillor, what we're starting to see, especially with COVID and where we find ourselves with COVID, is that enforcement is moving, and this is across the region. Enforcement is moving away maybe from the educational-based approach, more to a little bit of a strict approach, especially where we're seeing some flagrant and a little bit more of a deliberative contravention of our bylaws. And so I think what you're going to see in 2021, definitely what you're going to see over the next month or 2 months or 3 months, as we kind of hit the really the peak of the second wave of COVID, it is a much more deliberate effort for us to enforce in certain areas where we're seeing flagrant contraventions. And I think whether that be at our facilities, whether that be at people's homes, of course, education is important, and educating people when they don't understand the rules is where we try to go. But we're also seeing those individuals who, it isn't a matter of just not being educated. There's more of a disregard. And so, yes, we will be enforcing and issuing penalties if and where it makes sense.
I appreciate that response, because, you know, we had that issue with these bag signs and this we buy houses. You know, I'm seeing these signs all over the place. I'm not going to be the counselor that, you know, contacts bylaw or, you know, law enforcement to grab these signs. But I think that we need to start, if we haven't been, actually charging the penalties that we set. That would be my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Are there any other questions from council on item 7.1 report FN 12-20? Councillor Mikulik, your hand is still up. Thank you. Okay, there being no further discussion regarding item 7.1, I have a motion moved by Councillor Reimer to receive and file as information report FN 12-20, 2021 fees and charges, approve the proposed 2021 fees and charges increases decreases outlined in Appendix A, adopt the revised fees and charges bylaw as attached in Appendix B to come into effect January 1st, 2021, and repeal bylaw 2019-111, and adopt the revised water and wastewater charges bylaw as attached in Appendix C to come into effect on January 1st, 2021, and repeal bylaw 2019-112. I will now ask our clerk to call out the vote.
Thank you. Councillor Brunet,
Yes.
Councillor McPherson,
Yes.
Councillor Miklick,
Yes.
Councillor Reimer,
Yes.
Councillor Rajima,
Yes.
Councillor Timmers,
Yes.
Chair Russell,
Yes.
Mayor Easton,
Support.
and Councillor Pachariva is marked absent. Thank you. That carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And we will now be addressing item 7.2, the 2021 proposed capital budget. So as outlined earlier in your budget binder, and for those following at home, if you can look on to the presentation, there is a table of contents in page 7, which outlines the numbering system for all of our capital projects. I have added currently the last one will be the special infrastructure levy, which is now itemized as number 36. So right now we will start going through one by one. If anybody has any questions or concerns, feel free to raise your hand and ask staff for clarification. Again, if you wish to amend, add, or remove any projects, will require a motion and a subsequent vote on that project or on that motion. So we are going to start at item number 1, the culvert rehabilitation program. Are there any questions? Give it a brief pause. Seeing none, we will move to project number 2, the Glass Avenue Bridge. Any questions or concerns from council? Okay, seeing none, we will move to the Jordan Village improvements. And even though it was mentioned in the presentation from our CAO, we do need to make a decision whether or not to, I'm reading his presentation, our options are to approve the total amount within the 2021 capital budget and staff report back with reductions, or, which is highlighted, and to defer this from the capital budget as this item and bring it back in year report to approve funding early and mid Q1. So are there any questions or concerns? I have Councillor McPherson first in the queue. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that clarification, because that was top of mind as far as a deferral is concerned. So first of all, I'll say, you know, I am in full support. You know, being one of the ward councilors out here, you know, this Jordan Improvement Project has been a long time coming, and you know that you know, very exciting. We're getting to the end of the design and getting ready to go, and we're seeing shovels in ground, and then you know, we have the presentation and lots of good questions asked during the presentation, and raised a lot of really valuable issues with regards to project, and you know, although you know, I certainly love to see this thing move ahead full steam, and don't want to see a delay. I do support the change, you know, potential changes to, you know, some of the construction of the project, and you know, do want to see, you know, our foot continue to be heavy on the pedal. You know, I don't want to see us, you know, backing away and showing any hesitation on the project, but, you know, do want to see the right project being built, and us all being supportive of the commitment to the budget. So the question that I would have, I believe it was answered, but I just want to ask the CAO, If we move to a deferral, does that change the construction timing? That being, moving ahead with 19th Street this year, moving to Main Street in 2022, and then the parking lot in 2023.
Through you, Mr. Chair. It does not. I mean, Director Graham, correct me if I'm wrong. It does not in any way affect what our construction timelines are, Councillor. The proposal is to come back to you again early in Q1. I know Director Graham, our consultants and his team are currently working on crunching those numbers based on the changes that we would like to propose for council. So I may be able to come to you even sooner than early Q1. But just giving ourselves that ability, I think, to validate those numbers, it does not. And I see Dave nodding, so I think he's in agreement.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McPherson. And we have Councillor Brunet next up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Russell. I'll try to keep my comments very brief. Really glad to see that this project is being recommended to be pulled and to be deferred. I think there was some great discussion after the IBI presentation. I do believe it is a great project, a legacy project, a project we're all going to be happy with when it's completed. But not only in a year of COVID, I think at any time we should be asking ourselves, is the $12 million a wise investment? And I believe there are a number of things in that project right now that we don't need to spend. So if we can get that project whittled down to 9 or 10 million, I think we will have done our job. So I look forward to this and certainly will be supporting this deferral. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brunet. And we now have Councillor Reimer. Please go ahead, Councillor Reimer.
Thank you, Chair Russell. Just to echo along the same lines as Councillor McPherson, I would support a pause on this, a brief pause, so that we could be ready for early 21. What does that do, maybe through you, Chair, to the CEO? What does that do as far as budget? Is if that project comes in February, March, do we approve it then and it becomes part of our 22 budget, or how does that all fit in?
Through Mr. Chair to the councillor, Councillor, because it doesn't have an actual direct levy impact, what we need to do in terms of addressing the levy or changing the levy does not impact what we do. Council will have to approve it. You'll have to approve the new budget. But I think as Director Graham highlighted and Terry did as well at various points, Council will have a lot of opportunities for input into this project. You have to award the tender. You have to award a number of the relative pieces. So that's my long answer to tell you it won't impact the budget because our funding sources for this particular project come from a contribution of the region, our water, wastewater reserve fund, our water reserve fund, and development charges and long-term borrowing. So no issue from a budgetary perspective, but there will be approvals that council will need to make when we come forward.
So a follow-up to that, Chair Russell, if I may, does that, because it does not have a levy impact, does that negate any opportunity for some of these, hopefully, infrastructure projects coming down? Like because it doesn't impact the levy, does that keep us out of the running for any of those, or is that not really a factor? Like as far as shovel-ready projects go?
Through you, Mr. Chair, and to the councillor, it doesn't take us out of the running. Our own internal funding sources do not impact how the province or the federal government would look at our projects. If we were successful on any one of the projects, we would look at our internal sources and decrease them proportionately where it makes sense.
Okay. Thank you, CEO. Thank you, Chair Russell.
Thank you, Councillor Reimer. And we have Councillor Timmers. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair Russell. My question was just answered there regarding budget, but this is a massive project, and it's been a lot of years in the coming, and I think it's really wise to take a pause and defer and see if there is some monies that could be saved, and absolutely there shouldn't be any delay from what our CAO is telling us, and so we feel confident in that, and I think it's very prudent to take a second look. So my comments, and I do I do support deferring this at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Timmers. I don't see anybody else in the queue. I would echo the comments of everybody that has spoken. It is prudent to get a little bit more information. It doesn't negate the excitement or the importance of this project going forward. I think just based on the presentations and the communications we've had leading up to this evening, that everybody on council and staff is very energized about this project going forward. But as has been mentioned already, it's the details and the due diligence that we need to make sure we cover off. So in order to move this to a deferral, we do need a motion. If there's somebody on council that would like to make a motion to defer this from the capital budget at this time and bring it back in early Q1. If there's any volunteers, Councillor Benjama's hand is up. Madam Clerk, I will now, are you okay with the motion?
I am. Sorry, I was just writing something down. Yes, I can call the motion right now.
Okay. I will now call the vote on that motion to defer project number 3, the Jordan Village improvements, from this capital budget until early Q1.
Perfect. Thank you. And that's moved by Councillor Regima. Councillor Brunet.
Yes.
Councillor McPherson.
Yes.
Councillor Miklick. Oh, sorry, he has refrained from this discussion. Apologies. Councillor Reimer.
Yes.
And Councillor Regima.
Yes.
Councillor Timmers.
Yes.
Chair Russell.
Yes.
Mayor Easton.
Support, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. And Councillor Pachariva is absent, and this carries.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And just a reminder for all of council here this evening, for any motions that do come up, because we are a person short on council, we only have 8 voting members. That means that if we do end up in a tie, that tie will be considered a loss. So we will now move on to project number 4, the Lincoln Avenue Road and Water Main. Are there any questions or concerns from council? Seeing none, we will now move on to project 5, the Aberdeen Road Slope Stabilization. Are there any questions or concerns from council? Seeing none, we will now move on to project 6, the Road Improvement Program. Are there any questions or concerns from council?
We have Councillor McPherson.
Oh, Councillor McPherson, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Russell. And this project is really near and dear in that there was a pretty serious commitment made a number of years ago to focus on our road rehabilitation, and we've maintained that commitment. I'm proud to say over this term and continue to focus on a road, keeping the good roads good and improving our roads. And I think we saw that in the survey, that the people that have responded to the survey think roads are pretty much at the top of their wish list. So very good to see this again, and appreciate Director Graham's mapping. I think that helps us all in seeing where the roads are going to be taken care of over the next couple of years, 2-3 years. And it really helps us in our day-to-day work as councillors to share with our residents when they bring up their particular road what the plan is. My question, Mr. Chair, is about technology, and I know that the director and staff have been looking at new technologies, and I wonder if the director could maybe share some of what has gone on, as far as researching into new technologies, and as far as what could we see potentially in 2021 or 2022. And I'm really interested in the efficiencies or the savings that could be realized by moving some of these to some of these new technologies. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the councillor. Great question, and that's absolutely that's what we're doing. We want to stay current. We're looking at the different technologies out there with road resurfacing and road rehabilitation. We're meeting with our construction association partners, like the Rankin Constructions, Norjon, who are really leaders in road building and technologies, to learn a little bit more of some of the new technologies that they've been developing in that sector, and looking at how we can, incorporate those technologies into our program. So we are looking at that. As we go into next year, we're looking at that for some of our surface treatment works and some of the new surface treatment technologies, that we can use. May have some longer life cycles. In some locations might be better as we support active transportation and things like that. The other thing that we're going to do more comprehensively as well, and it's our next project coming up here on the list, with our road needs study update that we're proposing for next year, and that's when we're gonna review all of our roads, review their conditions, and through that process, we're going to be doing a lot more research in the different road, rehabilitation and resurfacing strategies, and look at how we can incorporate those into our future road rehabilitation programs. We also want to look at, recycling. There are strategies out there for using recycled products and things like that as well. So there'll be more to come on this, but it is something that we are definitely looking at. I hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you, Director Graham. That's fantastic. I think we were a couple of us are fortunate enough to have been brought up to speed by somebody in the industry, and some of the things that are going on out there really seem to be exciting in that they are building better roads, sometimes at a little bit more cost than what we're doing today, but the life expectancy is much, much longer, and their roads are staying good roads, up to double or more of the time that we're seeing right now. So good to hear that you and your team are on top of that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. And we have Councillor Mikulik up next, or Deputy Mayor Mikulik. Keep on forgetting.
Thank you very much, Chair Russell. Through you to perhaps Terry or Mr. Graham, Terry Troll, just as far as the funding of the road rehabilitation, it comes from reserve funds for the most part. Is this a separate reserve fund that is solely reserved for road rehabilitation and resurfacing, or are there other additional components that this fund funds? More of a budgetary question.
So through the chair, the special infrastructure levy that we talk about, that is a major source of funding for the road rehabilitation program. We can also use our gas tax reserve fund, which is a grant that we receive from the federal government that also contributes to it. And another one that can be used is the aggregate reserve fund that we have talked about in the past, that can be used for the road program as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Mikulik. And we now have Councillor Bernay. Please go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair Russell. I'm wondering if you would allow me, on behalf of my ward mate who is absent this evening, to send along his comments with regards to the road rehabilitation project. So these are Councillor Patriva's comments that he would like to be heard.
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So Councillor Patriva is very supportive, as Councillor McPherson has alluded to, the road rehabilitation that we started a number of years ago. Apparently he traveled to the west end of the municipality today, and he drove on a couple of sections. And as Councillor McPherson commented, in terms of the technology that we've been using, in other words, let's call it, for layman's terms, tar and chip. Councillor Patriva wants to bring up to the attention of the Public Works Department that he drove the section on 13th Street, which has been identified in the road rehabilitation, 13th Street from 4th Avenue to King Street. The councillor comments that he noticed that floral trucks are really affecting the status and the condition of the road. And therefore, he feels that we definitely should be looking at that on whatever technology we're going to use to make sure we're ensuring that heavy trucks are causing potentially some damage in that area. The other thing, through your chair, is the councillor drove the section from Hansberger. This is again on 13th Street, from Hansberger to Fairlane. And in his estimation, he felt that it appeared that that area had recently been repaired, and was wondering if that could be looked at, because he feels there are a lot of areas throughout the municipality that are in much, in his estimation, worse than that section of Hansberger 13th to Fairlane. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bernay, and thank you for reading that with gusto, like Councillor Patriva would.
Gives me goosebumps.
Okay, we now have Councillor Renjema. Councillor Renjema, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is about the provisional roads that are at the bottom of the chart. And assuming those are roads that, if we put these other ones out to tender and we get a great number back and we have some extra money left over, this is where we're going to apply that money. So I'm wondering how we come up with the $316,649. Well, I guess a better way of asking this is those three sections of road and that dollar amount, is that based on savings that we saw in previous years? Is it hopeful? How did we come up with that amount? So I'm just wondering, I guess, if we have any idea of the likelihood of being able to do those roads.
Through Mr. Chairman to Councillor Renjema. So the provisional roads are sort of our B list of roads, and why we put them there is if we get good pricing on the list above that aren't provisional, we want to keep with council's commitment to maximize our budget investment on road work. So if we get a savings, the idea is we would pick one of those roads that would fit our savings on our bid results. To your question on where that list comes from, we basically just move up roads from the following year. So those roads are planned in 2022. And so we move roads up and we try and look at, clustering of work, economies of scale, if you will. So we bring roads up that are close by other roads in the in the program that we're committing to do, so that, hopefully we can get a better price on those roads because they're nearby other roads we're already doing. That's kind of the mindset that we use.
Okay, so just a question of clarification, Mr. Chair. So, thank you. So Bethesda Road, if we saw $50,000 savings or $100,000 savings or a $200,000 savings, we'd look at Bethesda Road first because it's somehow priority in terms of our tenure or our road rehabilitation plan. And so it's priority over Hickory Lane and Vintage Court, of course, depending on what savings we potentially see.
Through Mr. Chairman to Councillor Renjema. Yeah, those are just some options of different pricing. So if our savings is, in and around 50,000, we could consider Bethesda, or if we have a larger savings, maybe we could consider one of the other roads. But there are just some options there to be able to choose from based on our savings that we end up seeing.
Okay. And those choices would come back, I guess, to Community Services and Infrastructure Committee in the new year after the tenders are all out.
Yeah, yes, through you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we would bring it to council for approval on, moving ahead with a provisional road. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Director Graham. Seeing no further hands up for discussion and seeing no motions for amendment, we will move on to project number 7, the road needs study. Councillor Gemma, your hand was still up. I don't know if you've put it up again. Judging. No. Okay. Any questions or concerns about the road needs study from council? No, seeing none. We will then move on to project number 8, the King Street sidewalk. Any questions or concerns from council? Nope. Okay, we will move on to project number 9, the fire master plan. Any questions or concerns from council? Seeing none, we will move on to project number 10, fire equipment. Are there any questions or concerns from council? Lovely. We will now move on to project 11, the fire rescue truck replacement. Any questions or concerns from council? Oh, Councillor Brunet, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. So I guess my only comment to the chief, and obviously we certainly, heard that this is an older vehicle that has been already upgraded, and it certainly seems to have lived well past its shelf life. But is there any consideration, and I guess I have to be careful here, based on what we discussed recently in closed session, is there any reason that we should be potentially pausing here to look at that based on that discussion of recent closed session?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think what we're looking for at this point is the budgetary approval. Before we would actually make such a purchase, we would actually consult with other parties to see if that's the right course of action. The concern here is some of the condition of the truck for a response vehicle. Now, there are some significant mechanical problems with it. So, but yeah, that would certainly be a consideration to address. Having said that, I know this is a specialty type of vehicle. It's not like a regular pumper truck where we have a number of them, but this particular one serves a more specialized function that I feel comfortable, asking for this in advance of, other considerations down the road that you referred to.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Councillor Brunet, and we now have Deputy Mayor Mikulik in the queue. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Russell, through you to the Chief. So this is a purchase of just about 785,000. We just went through a bit of a process where an approval where the rescue rehab truck was supposed to come in at 300 and it ended up coming in at 400. Is there a chance of that happening again with a purchase like this? I mean, this is over twice the value. Is there a chance of that happening again? Should we be preparing ourselves for that possibility? I mean, I hate to use the word contingency, but it was just about a 25 or more than a 25% increase on that rescue rehab estimate. So how accurate is this particular estimate?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the Deputy Mayor, a rescue truck is a much more common piece of equipment. The previous one we did was more of a specialty item. It was more of a pioneering type of truck. There aren't that many out there versus heavy rescue truck, they've been around for a number of years, so I feel a lot more confident that this is an accurate price. And part of the process to come up with these figures is to do a review of other departments, other recent purchases, and this really is within the realm of what this type of a truck would be worth, which is something that was difficult to do with the last one. And it's so. I guess to answer your question, yes, I think we can be pretty confident that it would be around that amount of money.
And if I may, a follow-up?
Certainly.
So now, should there be this, should there be an unexpected swing in the dollar or some unforeseen circumstance that would increase the cost of this truck by 25%? Is there the ability to not move forward with it? Is there the ability to pause on that purchase should there be a large swing in cost?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think, as I said, there are some mechanical problems. We could, consider possibly a rescoped vehicle or something of that nature. We could look at that time. But as I say, a vehicle of that type to have that kind of a swing would be almost unheard of, from my experience anyway. Because we're talking, that kind of a swing, we're talking over $1 million, and that really, that'd be unheard of. I guess the other option too, if we do go to tender it and it's over budget, we just cancel the tender and act accordingly.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Chief. And we will now go to Madam Mayor. Please go ahead, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure where to direct this question. It has a couple of parts to it. Is this the type of vehicle where the entire new purchase can be designed and contracted for and assembled within the 1 year? Or in fact, is it the kind of vehicle where you buy the base and certain key elements of it, and then you have to wait to add other parts to it, partly because of cost, but partly because they're not readily available or there's something specialized about them. And I guess the other part of the question is, when we are dealing with these fairly significant purchases, if they're going to be done in 2 years, for whatever reason, maybe there's just a delay that we haven't anticipated, can we only budget for the portion that's going to come out of the 2021 budget, and then we've already made the commitment, and then budget for the other elements? I hope I'm not making this more complicated than it needs to be, but one of the examples that I can give you is that hydro trucks are purchased in several phases and budgeted in several phases. So if the truck is going to cost $1.5 million, you know that, but you budget for whatever you're going to spend in the 3 years that you're assembling this asset. So I'm not sure whether that's the chief or CAO. I'll leave it to you, Mr. Chairman.
I think I saw the chief nod, or CAO want to take it.
Maybe I'll start, and if the CAO has something additional to add, you can chime in. But this type of a truck is typically, they're all custom built. The chassis, it's not like a commercial chassis where they pick one off the line and away they go. It is totally 100% custom built. So typically for this type of a truck, we would issue an order to one particular company who would custom build the entire truck. So the phasing that you speak of is not typically done with this type of an apparatus. I know we have done that with some of our smaller trucks, the tanker trucks, for instance, where exactly as you spoke of, Mayor, we could buy the chassis separately and add the tank later. This type of a truck is not conducive to that because the chassis really has to marry up very specifically with the rest of the body. So the build time on a fire truck is typically about a year. It generally doesn't go much over that. So we would, if we were to put the order in, say, January, February, you would get it, early the next year, sort of thing.
Okay, all right, then that wouldn't change the budget approach. Okay, all right, but so I guess, Mr. Chairman, I would just want to clarify then, when we have those opportunities with the custom builds, knowing they're custom built, knowing that there's certain parts that have to be phased in, and even knowing that certain things can only come from the United States, I just want to make sure that if there is an advantage to us breaking those down, it doesn't change the commitment. I just want to reinforce that. It just makes cash flow a little bit more reasonable that we're doing that. Is that the case, Mr. Chairman, through you, the Chief?
Yeah, so typically we don't pay really until we have two options. We have the option, through you, Mr. Chair, of paying for the entire truck upon delivery. However, what we've been doing for the last couple of trucks is to make a progress payment when it gets to a certain location. And then we generally save a substantial amount of money by doing that. So I think in the previous trucks we've purchased, it has been to our advantage to buy it all at once and then kind of pay for one part of it mid-year sort of thing, and then for the balance upon delivery.
And what would the savings through you, Mr. Chairman? What would that savings be? What percentage?
It's typically in the order of $10,000 to $12,000. So what that is, doing quick math, whatever that works out to.
It's not much, Chief.
No.
I have to say, almost $800,000. I don't know whether I'd be getting very excited about that. So what aren't we doing that other people are doing on this matter? I'm looking for some opportunities here. Does everybody do it the same way?
Again, through you, Madam Mayor, or through you, Chair, to the Madam Mayor. Unfortunately, due to the market, because every single one is very custom built and specific to each municipality, there aren't really a lot of opportunities for savings I should speak of. I think a hydro truck is a little bit different. And I understand what you're saying there in terms of piecing it out into different phases, but because this is such a specialized piece of equipment, they really need to know from start to finish, all the components all in one. So we typically order from one company. They take care of the entire process.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure if this is an appropriate time to ask this question, but my question, and I'll leave it to you whether you're going to allow it or not, is, are we so specialized, or have we become so specialized? Are our decisions so rarefied around these pieces of equipment that we got into a habit of doing things in a certain way, and we just can't see ourselves doing it any differently? Because we've got 12 municipalities and 12 specialized. I don't know whether you've ever talked as a group about how specialized we all are, but it's costly to take that approach. There's no question about it. And I think we're trying to be extremely realistic about safety and good support to our fire service and emergency management in total. So, Mr. Chairman,
No, Madam Mayor, I think it is a good question. I just think because it's not necessarily pertinent to the 2021 capital, it might be best served to put that question on pause to the next general business meeting for, again, a future review for processes and procedures down the road.
That's a fine idea. If we could just direct that off to Madam Clerk, I would be
certainly
satisfied.
Madam Clerk, please make a note.
Thank you.
Noted.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I do have just one quick hitter question to either Chief Hudson or Mr. Walla. I see that the old truck, even though it is well past its lifetime, will be just disposed of in accordance with our procurement policy. Is there any redeeming value we can expect back from that truck?
Maybe I'll take a stab at that, Mr. Chair. Typically, as we have done in the past, is we do put it out for auction, and whatever proceeds we get, we use that to offset the price. Due to the age of the vehicle, it was very difficult to estimate a value of that, and so because it is over 30 years old, so whatever we get for it, we will certainly put it back in the equipment reserve fund.
Okay, thank you, Chief. And I see no other questions, although Mayor Easton's hand is still up. I'm not sure if she wants to come back in. She does not. Seeing no other questions or concerns or requests for amendment, we will move on to the next project on the list, which is Project 12 for those following along at home, the Shoreline Protection Environment Assessment. Are there any questions or concerns from Council? Councillor Mikulik, or Deputy Mayor Mikulik, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Russell. I just still looking at this, and I asked this question before. Like, I don't see, like, I'm looking, and it's results from the environmental assessment study will identify the long-term capital projects for shoreline works, road relocations. I don't see anything in the 10-year capital budget that addresses any of the possible erosion concerns. I don't, I'm being a layman here now. A simple walk down the shoreline would tell me what, areas of concern there are. And I don't know what $500,000 really gets, and or 550, when we're not anticipating any expenditures along the shoreline. And when it says long-term capital projects, how long is long-term? That's a question I have with regards to this particular study.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to hazard a guess. I'm going to obviously defer to Director Graham. I'm going to hazard a guess that the study comes first, and from there, the action plan would be created. But Director Graham, if you have any comments.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman, to Councillor Mikulik. Yeah, you're exactly correct. We need to do the environmental assessment study to really define what we are going to do in terms of capital upgrades. So, we're going to be looking at, the best long-term solutions, whether we're doing permanent shoreline right in place along the shoreline, or are we looking at road relocations? So the capital costs will be more accurately defined once we go through the EA study, because the EA study will sort of lay out what the plans will be. I mean, from a real high level perspective, we've estimated that, the shoreline protection works are probably in the $50 million range. Just to kind of give you some context for the value of this study. I know it's an expensive study. It's $550,000, but this is a very large, significant study, which will support a very large, significant capital plan in the long term. Long term, you're probably looking at 10 to 15 years. Again, it depends on support from other levels of government and things like that will assist the town in ultimately tackling the long-term plan. But those are some comments to that question.
Okay, thank you, Director Graham. And I see our CAO also has his hand in the queue.
Through you, Mr. Chair, through you, Mr. Chair, I do. Just a couple of comments. I think Council will recall that between 2017 and 19, we spent about $2 million in shoreline repair works for flooding. So I think it's important to highlight that $2 million combined. I think Director Graham spoke extensively to what is in an EA and why we do EAs. But I think, one of the other things that I would suggest or I think highlight for Council, you'll recall when we first introduced the capital budget, we talked about the special project list that we would be putting a program around specifically. And one of the projects in that special program in that special projects list was our funding application and our funding ask specific to this particular project. I can update members of council that they've opened up a second, what I would call a more funding or a second envelope. And so I think the feds have recognized that the program was and is overprescribed. And I think they're looking at larger municipalities in that first bucket, that first stream, and we're positioned well, I think, for future applications. So we are coming back to council with those details. Council, you asked about what does long-term look like. I would tell you on a $50 million project like this, that could be 10 years or that could be 20 years. And I think, you know, we need the study to help us look and map out, is this a $50 million project like we believe it is? And what does the next, you know, 15 to 20 years look like if we get no external funding from senior levels of government? So that's why we've got the EA in front of you here. But I think, again, important to highlight that we've spent $2 million in funding over the last 3 years between 17 and 19 already to address issues around the shoreline. So this is a needed study.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Deputy Mayor, any further questions?
Just a follow-up. Is a study like this required to apply for funding or to apply for assistance through NDRIP or NDRAP, or I forget the name of the disaster recovery? I forget the application we made. Is an EA study like this required to make those applications?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, it is. I mean, Director Graham probably has more details on the requirements, but detailed environmental assessments, especially when we're talking about shorelines, are essential.
Okay, thank you very much. And I just wanted to get a sense of long-term, like, you know, it's long-term, you know, is it 5, 10, 15, 20? And you've answered that question. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think that long-term has a lot of O's in the long. So seeing no further questions or concerns regarding this project, we will move on to Project 13, Glenbrook Drive. Any questions or concerns from council? And Deputy Mayor and CAO, your hands are still up, just as a reminder. Thank you. Okay, seeing no questions or concerns on this project, we will move to Project 14, the Ontario Street Sanitary Sewer. Councillor McPherson, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just wanted to make a quick comment about the previous project, and just to acknowledge the AT piece of this, and it is something that the folks over there in the Brookside area have been pushing for, and pleased to see it in this project. You know, there's absolutely challenges to 21st Street as to where those people are going to go once they get to the bottom of the street. But you know, I think this particular staircase, whatever it is, I think will greatly assist from a safety standpoint, and you know, will I think get people out walking. And there is I guess there is a trail they can connect to after the bridge down there, after the Bailey Bridge. So just wanted to make that point that you know, in what is basically a sewer replacement, we're also taking a run at the AT side of this. So kudos to the staff for that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McPherson. So we are going still forward to Project 14. If there are any questions or concerns on the Ontario Street Sanitary Sewer. Seeing none, we will move on to Project 15, the Queen Street Sanitary Sewer. Oh, Councillor Bernay, please go ahead.
Sorry, Chair, I was late getting to the raise hand button. I'm just wondering, I noticed in this project, I'm wondering through you, Chair, if our Director of Public Works could just comment. I'm seeing here that this is a partnership with the Region of Niagara. I'm just wondering if, so is it a $300,000 project and they're paying half and we're paying half, or maybe just a comment on that. Thank you.
Through Mr. Chairman to Councillor Bernay. So this is the Ontario Street sanitary sewer design project that we're referring to?
Yes.
Is that? Yes. Okay. Thanks. Yes. So what the sanitary sewer design component would be the town. So the town is responsible for the sanitary sewer or the wastewater service on Ontario Street. What we're trying to do here is coordinate with the region of Niagara, because the region of Niagara are planning to replace the transmission water main, regional water main that goes up Ontario Street. So they're doing design work next year. And this project we have was identified in our capital plan, but we want to align it with what the region's doing, you know, just to make sure we're economies of scale and doing things together if we're going to dig up the street. So
that's great. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Councillor Bernay. And we are going to circle again on the Queen Street sanitary sewer, just in case anybody wants to make a comment about that. Councillor Bernay, are you in the queue again, or the high five is down? Okay, seeing no questions or concerns about Project 15, we shall move on to Project 16, the Sewer Rehabilitation and Replacement Program. Any questions or concerns from Council on Project 16? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to Project 17, the bulk water station upgrade. Any questions or concerns from Council on the bulk water station upgrade? Seeing none, we will move on to the Frisian neighborhood water main. Councillor Bernay, please go ahead.
I had a question again, maybe through you to, is Jillian on the call? I'm just wondering, that picture on page 63, is that the bulk water station on Heinen Drive? Because I'm not seeing that picture as representing that bulk station on Heinen, but I stand to be corrected.
I don't believe Jillian is on the call, and I'm not sure if anybody from the staff wants to. Oh, Director Graham.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman, to Councillor Bernay. No, you're absolutely right, Councillor, that's not Heinen Drive. I think what we were trying to do is show an example of what a station would look like in terms of what we're thinking of in terms of our upgrade. So that's the type of station that we're considering for Heinen Drive. So this would just be an example of one like that.
Okay, that's great, because I was starting to really lose it. I didn't understand what we were saying there, but I got you.
Thank you, Councillor Bernay. Again, our staff is as progressive as possible. We love the future focus there, Director Graham. And we are going to circle back on Project 18, the Frisian neighborhood water main. Any questions or concerns from Council? And I see Councillor Reimer jumping up with excitement.
Thank you, Chair Russell. Definitely excitement. A question through you to Director Graham. This is phase 2. There is no phase 3, correct? We join on Green Meadow and Cedar Brook. We go back into plastic line there. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the councillor, yes, you're absolutely correct. This will replace the last of the ductile iron in that area.
Okay. All right. Yep. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Russell.
Thank you, Councillor Reimer. If you'd like to lower your hand at your leisure, that would be appreciated. Thank you. I see. See, there's no other questions or concerns regarding this project. We will move on to Project 19, the AFG pool sand filter replacement. Any questions or concerns from Council? I thought that would have been a big one. Just joking. Okay, we will move on then to Project 20 was removed. That is the Jordan's Lions Park. So we are going to skip over that as it was removed by staff prior to submission. Oh, Councillor McPherson would like to make a comment. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess I'd just like to say that, I've, as a Ward 3 councillor, I've been a strong advocate for new investment in the Jordan Lyons Park. And, certainly as a resident out here, I know through personal experience and the history of that park, more importantly, the value and enjoyment that it brings to the residents out here. And really, there is absolutely a strong pride of ownership in that Jordan Lyons Park. And, that stems from the Jordan Lyons back in the 60s and 70s and building that park up on their own backs, on their own cash. And, as much as I'd like to see us moving forward with this project, and I do anticipate that we will get there, I do support the pause to reach out to the community, including the Jordan Lyon Park user groups, of course, the Jordan Lions themselves, and obviously the residents to play a part in the redesign of the Jordan Lyon Park. And I also look forward to, a report coming back to council in 2021. Hopefully, the earlier the better, and a fulsome discussion so that we are all in alignment, that, the residents, the user groups, the council and the staff are all in alignment on what we want to see that park being. I think the CAO commented earlier that this is one of the largest investments this town would make. I would go so far as to say this is whether it be a park, a building, whatever, a road, this is the largest investment that the town has made at what is proposed to be 27 million. So I think it's important, obviously, that we get it right. And there is absolutely a risk of missing some infrastructure funds, but I think what trumps that is getting the project right and getting everybody in alignment and getting the facilities and the park that makes sense. So again, I support the pause. I appreciate the lengthy conversation that Councillor Mikulik and I had yesterday afternoon with the staff, with our Associate Director of Community Services, with the CAO, and with the Director of Economic Development and Communication. And I just wanted to make those comments as a ward councillor that I'm pleased the way we're going, and I think it's the right thing to do. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. And we now have Deputy Mayor Mikulik.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yeah, Councillor McPherson, my fellow ward mate, he summed up a lot of the things that I feel as well. I agree with this deferral for now, and to seek more of a structured conversation with various user groups, but not only various user groups, but various generations that have appreciated that park, and to seek their feedback and to get them to feel part of it and continue feeling part of it. That's what I like to see. People feel like they've contributed both financially as well as their thoughts and ideas. So thank you very much. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And seeing no further questions or comments, we will move on to Project 21, the Camden Park Study. Any questions or concerns from council? Oh, our CAO would like to make a comment.
Through you, Mr. Chair, if I could, maybe to preempt any questions, this was one of those kind of last minute conversations that staff had today regarding the Camden Park studies. And I think the comments I want to suggest for council is that I would rather, and I'm hoping council agrees with me, see the funds that are set aside here for studies actually go to park equipment. And so I think as a result of that, earlier today, Shannon, Kathleen, and I had a conversation. We've also spoken to Paul, and I think looped in a number of other individuals. Briefly spoke to the mayor as well. I think there's an ability for us to work collaboratively, if not strongly, with our partners at the NEC to ensure that any funds that would be required for studies are incredibly limited, if not very negligible, for a park like this. What we've heard during COVID, what we've heard, I think at all times, is that more green space is needed, more park space is needed. So to suggest that $200,000 in studies are required for a piece of property that we're not putting a fire station on, we're not putting a facility on, we're not doing any subsurface real digging, that we're actually keeping in a very positive and healthy state, and actually probably rehabilitating the project, the site in a lot of ways. I'd rather see the monies be spent again on park equipment. So I would suggest that we probably amend the title somewhat, that it really talk about the Camden Park redevelopment, or the Camden Park equipment, or some iteration of all of that, and that the direction be given that we work with the NEC to limit the cost of studies, and these monies only be put towards the redevelopment of the park itself, not these anticipatory studies.
Okay, thank you, Mr. CAO. I see my hands here have lit up like a Christmas tree, but I just have a clarification. Are you suggesting that we amend it and put park equipment on this property, or one of our already designated properties for parkland up there? Just want to clarify.
So a couple of things. I would suggest it should be on this property through you, Mr. Chair, or to you, Mr. Chair. I think when we look at the previous secondary plan, the previous secondary plan speaks to a future development that we don't know if it'll be 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So I suspect, and I would suggest that if we're able to facilitate the exchange of the property and the securing of this property, that the monies only be put towards park equipment and not the necessary studies. So I'm hoping that provides some clarity.
Okay, thank you, Mr. CAO, and we will go to Mayor Easton. Go ahead, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's always hard when you've got a few really good projects on the docket, and you want to move forward. And we've had a lot of great success. But there's no question that what we're dealing with now, the dimensions of these projects, is really it's challenging. And if money were no object, we could just go ahead and do them, and they would be great. They would be tremendous assets. But nothing feels better than when you get it right. And I think that the bike pump and the skate park is a really good example of that. Crokage Park is a really good example where sometimes you have to wait a long time and really go through a lot of really true grinding in order to get it right. So what are we dealing with now? We're not just dealing with expensive projects. We're really looking at a whole litany of steps around financial sustainability that give us the design that we want, give us that equity across town, and make sure that that we do things well in every case. And I think that's what these discussions are about. And there really isn't any risk here. And the pandemic is slowing things down a little bit anyway. So there's not going to be any risk. Nobody is saying we won't do these things. Nobody is saying this community is more important than another. We're really reevaluating the process that we're going to use going forward. And I think we should be pleased with the fact that we're comfortable with that. And that's a message that we want to give to the people as well. When you look at those numbers, the age groups and the number of people that are fairly new to this community, there's a lot of people that we need to hear from. And I think this process is doing that. So I think good for the staff and for any naysayers, not in a negative way, naysayers, but people who wanted to look at this with a different lens. It's good. This is what we ought to be doing. Thanks very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And we will now go to Councillor McPherson. Councillor McPherson, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just want to support the proposed proposal to go all in for the park equipment. You know, I think that if we look at the the various parks around town, I would think that the $500,000 is basically going to get us some swings and maybe a climbing structure, and that is about it. So I think it makes sense to add in the monies that we're going to go to these surveys. I did have concerns about the potential risk of not getting approvals even after doing these surveys. So I think this decision makes a lot of sense. I would be willing to bring it forward, but I will defer to the local ward councilors if they would rather bring it forward. So I'm in full support of this change. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. And I just before we move on to Councillor Deputy Mayor Mikulik, again, I had those same concerns about again what happens if that exchange doesn't take place and we do the study, spend the money, and we get left holding the bag. But that has been assuaged. So we will now then move on to Deputy Mayor Mikulik. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Russell. I'm just I'm struggling with this, as well. Spending $200,000 and not necessarily, receiving the ability to build a park on that proposed site. But also, I don't see a problem, me personally, with the current site that was outlined. When I see that they're going to be building a 34 home subdivision, Mountain Village subdivision, that you'll probably have direct connectivity to this current park. I see accessibility being a lot easier on Fly Road with sidewalks that are not far from this park. And the proposed park location, I believe you have to cross a bridge. You have to cross a bridge, and I'm not sure how safe it is or how accessible it would be for people moving into that area in terms of walkability. And is this a neighborhood park, or is this a remote park on the other side of a stream? So for those reasons, I'm not really in support of even moving the park from the current location to the proposed location. Those are my comments, and I appreciate the possibility of the proposed location. However, I think the current location, from a connectivity and an accessibility fashion, I think is there's a school across the street. I don't see a problem with the park where it's currently planned and just moving forward with that. So that's my comment.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I see our CAO has his hand up to make a comment, if you would.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So a couple of comments, and I just want to, again, I think take council as a whole back to the comments I made in introducing this amendment or this change to this particular project. So one comment around the fact that this is part of a secondary plan, so we actually haven't secured any land, and this would only go forward when a development proposal comes forward. And we don't know if that development proposal, as I said, is 2 years away or 10 years away. The ability to actually go in the proposed park location off Camden Road, as highlighted in the map, allows us to proceed with this project next year, allows us to do the necessary works we need to do and to get a park for the Camden community as soon as possible. The other, so again, I'm not necessarily an engineering expert or a park expert, and I'll look to others to maybe chime in on those. But my caution when we are not putting a parking lot in this area, because it is its location, and so I would So a couple of comments. I mean, a park off Fly Road, I look at Fly Road in some ways as I'm not going to call it a highway, but a very fast traveling road. And I think as a result of that, I mean, you know, my advice to you is if you could get a location that's not on Fly Road, that's a better thing. And so, you know, the Camden Road location is one I am more supportive of with staff, but I will let the appropriate staff who have that engineering and park expert in community services and public works speak to why typically we wouldn't want to put something on Fly Road, although it is identified in the secondary plan.
Okay, Director McKay.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, you know, we look at lots of things when we're looking now at planning out our parks, and having learned that the area that was identified in the secondary plan was on Fly Road, and with what I would consider not the interesting businesses around it, surrounding it, it's not an ideal location. I can tell you that we had challenges building the new Camden Fire Station in the location just because of truck speeds and you know, while the signs say 50, there aren't many people that follow that. When we looked at this location, and again, this was an unsolicited invitation to us, to planning staff and to community services staff from this private landowner. We really started to see how beautiful this little park space could be. We talked to staff in public works about sidewalks that would and could be constructed down Camden Road from the new developments that are proposed to happen in that area, which would allow safe walking. We would delineate the adjacent agricultural land by simply a fence. We wouldn't be paving. We'd have very, as you see in your capital budget seat, very much a natural inspired park. And we have said many times in talking about our Parks and Rec and Culture Master Plan that we don't want to build the same park over and over again throughout town. We want different amenities in different parks and amenities that suit the environment, suit the neighborhood, and that people will be interested in driving to check out and to see. So as staff, we are very much in support of this location. If we can make it happen with the partners and the agencies who need to assist us on that, we think that the residents will be very pleased. Would we love to have a park on both sides of Fly Road? We absolutely would. And perhaps in the future, that is something that we might be able to explore. But given the current options, we believe this is a great option that we should be carefully considering and exploring.
Thank you, Director McKay. Deputy Mayor Mikulik, do you require any further commentary?
I respect the answers. I just look at where parks are. I appreciate the fact that it's on Fly Road and that it's a busy road. I also wonder if perhaps one day there's going to be a four-way stop at Camden and Fly Road. With the increased development moving forward, that would perhaps slow traffic down and give it more of a community feel or more of a hamlet feel. But I still, you know, I look at Jordan Hollow. Jordan Hollow is on a main thoroughfare, Highway 8. There's a park that's going to be built there with a parking lot. So I'm still not supportive of this project or the relocation of this park. I respect staff's opinion. However, you know, my personal thoughts are that we have a piece of land ready to go. We have a shortage of park space. You know, let's build the park. That's my thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. We do have Director Graham, his hand up. Looks like he wants to chime in and give you some feedback.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to the councillor. Just maybe a couple comments around, you know, pedestrian safety, if you will. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's the concerns we would have from a pedestrian safety perspective would be when you have a park frontage on Fly Road. I mean, Fly Road is a busy road. It is a truck route. A lot of trucks go through there. We do want everybody driving 50, but still it's a high volume road. So when you have a park frontage, we have sidewalks on both sides of Fly Road. You could get, kids jaywalking from the south side across to the north side to get to the park. Again, you don't really want to create that type of situation on a busy road where people might have the tendency to jaywalk from the south to the north. And even people playing in the park, kids in the park, kicking balls around or whatnot. We really don't want them coming out to the roadside area. There's those types of risks. For the proposed park location, I mean, as Director McKay highlighted, it will be key for us to connect sidewalks to that location to provide connectivity. There are sidewalks on Camden Road North now, and through the new development, we're going to be extending those sidewalks into the development, and it would make sense, and we would have to extend them to the park as well to provide that connectivity. So just a couple comments from my end. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Graham. Just pulling up my list. Deputy Mayor Mikulik, your hand is still up, but I think you're surpassed your 3 questions.
Well, yeah, I don't think that's changed my mind, because we're talking about probably 150 meters of sidewalk just to get to that new park across a bridge. So I respect that answer as well. My mind hasn't been changed.
Okay, that's okay. We are going to be having a vote on the amendment if we do have a mover, but we're going to go to Councillor Timmers. She is up next.
Thank you very much, Chair Russell. So there's quite a history here. And, when the secondary plan was drawn 20 years ago, people in this community were not happy with the location of the said park. It is beside an area that was a junkyard for decades and decades. We have no idea what's on that site. There would have to be remediation, I'm sure, because it's probably contaminated with some kinds of we don't know exactly what's been dumped there. So currently now it's going to be a commercial auto mechanic. So there's about 30 vehicles on site right now. So honestly, I don't see families with children wanting them playing in a park beside a commercial auto mechanic with huge vehicles sitting on site on a truck route. It's just extremely dangerous. It does not connect to the new development at all. And we are very fortunate to have this opportunity to get this beautiful piece of property down Camden North. It's not over the bridge, it's on this side of the bridge. It is absolutely a beautiful piece with a creek that runs through it to the north. It's safe because it's a quieter road. So, the traffic is going at a very slow rate. It's cars, and it's not as heavily traveled at all because it's a bit of a dead end. The 34 houses that are going to be built will be directly adjacent or just a short distance from the park. And, with Early Dawn, when it went in, almost every house in Early Dawn has young children. So the demographic up here has changed greatly. There's many, many young families with children. So I picture the 34 homes being a big extension of that with a lot of young families as well. So they could easily walk down to that little park area. It would only require a small amount of sidewalk to be installed to access it safely. People walk that direction all the time. Children ride their bikes all the time on that strip because it is quiet. So those are my comments, and I absolutely support the amendment and would be very happy to move that motion. And I'm very excited to take this direction. I had concerns about the studies as well. It's a lot of money with no guarantee. But in speaking today with our CAO, I feel pretty confident in the route that we're now taking. So I absolutely support that motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Timmers. And seeing no other hands in the queue, we do have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers. Oh, Councillor Gemma's hand jumped in there before we got to the motion. So Councillor Gemma, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just a little bit confused because The proposal, or we've heard discussion about putting this money aside for playground equipment. We don't own the land yet. We may own the land in the near future, but will these studies not need to be done, or at least some of the studies need to be done regardless? So I see something in there about changing the use from agricultural to recreational. So I guess I'm looking for a response.
Clarification?
Yeah, because if we have to do the studies anyway, do they have to be done or don't they have to be done? And if the land's transferred us to, let's say, in March of 2021, that's just an example of a date out of my head, in order to be able to use it as a park and put playground equipment on it, does the use have to be changed? And if so, do these studies have to be done?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gemma. I think our CAO has a comment.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, to the councillor, and I'm also going to let Kathleen chime in. But the conversations we've had to date with the NEC, they've indicated that they believe these studies do need to be done. We are arguing, I would suggest going to be arguing or suggesting that they don't need to be done, because the type of park development that we're doing on this site does not see us in any way requiring the level of environmental impact studies and planning justifications required. Yes, there'll be some changes that need to happen, but I think our first step will be to reach out, speak with the NEC. If we need to go to the NEC and the board, and at a board level, have some conversations. And at that point in time, I would suggest that there's discretion, on whether these studies are needed. And so I think more conversations need to happen. We will not be doing a land swap until we get clarifications on these particular studies and their requirements. So I would suggest there isn't a risk for council that we're going to take a piece of land and then have to do a bunch of studies, or be told later, once we already own the land and have done a land transfer, a land swap, that now all of a sudden we've got a piece of land we can't do anything with. So we would seek the clarification and direction from NEC that I believe we have a strong case for. And following that, we would then proceed with the land swap, and then put the monies that we have set aside and that we would be setting aside here to park equipment, both this year and some next year, as is highlighted in the council report. So without getting into details, Councillor Regime, into the type of debate I'd like to have with the NEC, because I don't think this is necessarily that format, nor is it really a public debate at this particular point in time. I think you're going to see staff push really strong for exceptions to these, because I think the interpretation differs from our planning staff to their planning staff, at least somewhat. So I don't know if Ms. Dale has anything to add to that.
So, Mr. Chairman, I guess the only thing I would add is the initial meeting with the Niagara Escarpment staff is they had indicated that we do need to amend their plan. However, in other areas in the Niagara Escarpment area, things like natural parks are permitted in certain areas. So as part of amending the Niagara Escarpment plan, they've asked for these supporting studies. Some of them are triggered because there's a water course in this area, so you typically need to do archaeological and environmental impact studies, for example. So this is where this is coming from, is as part of the NEC applications. These are the studies that they've requested to support an amendment to their plan, but we're going to go through the NEC plan in more detail and see if we can have some further discussion with the NEC staff.
Thank you, Director Dale. Councillor Nchema, any further questions?
Well, I'm thinking that there may have to be studies done. So I'm not sure how that affects what we're proposing to do tonight, but I'm thinking if we're proposing to develop the park and put playground equipment on it, we may need to do studies, but let's hope not. But I'll leave that there for now.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Go ahead, Mr. CAO.
So I just want to put the council's mind at ease, and all members of council's mind at ease. We won't be proceeding with anything unless we get the type of clearance we're suggesting this evening. So we would find ourselves being back to where we are. We can have, I think, various opinions and deliberations and discussions on the planning interpretations, but that's, I think, what staff want to go away and do. And so I would suggest that I think if council was to amend this as Camden Park equipment or Camden Park redevelopment in terms of how we decide to use the phrasing of the title of this capital project and the capital project details, that allows us to go back and do that. And again, we will be in front of council if we are unsuccessful in that deliberation, debate, argument, etc.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Councilor Gemma, any further comments?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councilor, we have Director Dale in the queue, but I think that was for a previous comment. So we have Councilor Mikulik back in. Please go ahead. Actually, sorry, Councilor Mikulik. Yeah, Councilor Brunei usurps you because he has not spoken yet. So Councilor Brunei, you have the full attention of council and staff.
So just one quick question then. I'm hearing what Councillor Rinchema is saying, and you know, where I guess we're going to trust staff to go back to the NEC and see what we can do. But just a quick question. So in this amendment of redevelopment and putting the money into the park, is there any change when it was a study, it was all 200,000 to the levy? Would there be any change with this redevelopment of park equipment? That money would come from another source? Very good question.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the council, that is a very good question. I see our staff thinking about that, Councillor. Can I suggest we respond back to you unless Terry has a response that she can give you right now? But I would suggest that we'll go back, we'll look at the funding source as it relates to that.
Mr. Walla?
Music to our ears if it's not coming off the levy.
What we can do, I know Councillor or Deputy Mayor Mikulik wants to make another comment. We can also take a bio break for 5 minutes, reconvene, or 8 minutes or 9 minutes, depending on your leisure, reconvene and come back on topic. But Deputy Mayor Mikulik, would you like to make a comment first?
No, I can wait. I can wait.
Okay.
After. Until after the
Okay, well, what we'll do, we will put this on pause. Oh, Madam Clerk, you have a comment?
I just need to take us off live stream while we